A quorum of the City Council being present, let us all rise to salute the flag and then pause for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the April 3rd business meeting of the Cambridge City Council. Our first order of business will be the submission of the record for February 27, 2017 and March 6, 2017. Pleasure of the City Council. On a motion by Vice Mayor Mark McGovern to move the adoption of the record, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and this record has been submitted and adopted. We now move to public comment. Public comment is a part of the City Council meeting where an individual can speak on any item on an item on the agenda. Under the provisions of Chapter 43, Section 93 of the General Laws and of the School Committee, I knew I was going to do that. City Council, the members of the public may comment upon items in the following categories of business: reconsideration, city manager's consent agenda, unfinished business from preceding meetings, applications and petitions requiring approval or referral by the City Council, consent resolutions, consent policy orders and resolutions relating to policy analysis or development, committee reports, roundtable working meeting minutes, and communications and reports from city officers. Each speaker shall limit his or her comments to no more than 3 minutes. Written testimony can be left at the basket provided or given to the council page, and such written testimony will be made part of the record. A bell would ring when you have reached 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and you will have 15 seconds to finish your comments. Thank you. The first person to have signed up for public comment is Nan Duffy, followed by Joanna Schulman. Please give your name and the item that you're speaking to for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nan Duffley. I'm speaking on the impeachment resolution.
Thank you.
I've been a resident of Cambridge for over 25 years, though not consecutive ones. My husband and I first moved to an apartment on Huron Avenue in 1975 when I started Harvard Law School. After our daughter was born, we bought and moved into a two-family across the street at the corner of Huron and Fresh Pond, and then moved for a time to Belmont, where our third child was born. But we missed the Fresh Pond market, so we came back about 17 years ago. I am very proud of my Harvard Law degree and the opportunity that it gave me to devote nearly 25 years of public service as a judge before I retired last year. But I stand before you today not as someone with any special knowledge or understanding of the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, but as a private citizen who has the utmost reverence for our Constitution and the rule of law. This is not unusual for those like me who arrived as refugees and immigrants from some other place and became naturalized U.S. citizens, as I did. My father, a Dutchman, served in the Dutch underground fighting the Nazis. As a Marine, he went to Indonesia after the war, and there he and my Chinese mother met, fell in love, and married. A year after my birth, there was a regime change. The property and businesses belonging to ethnic Chinese, including my mother's family, was confiscated by the new government. And because it was unsafe to stay in Indonesia, my parents fled with me and a few belongings to the Netherlands. We immigrated to this country in 1956 when I was 6 years old. My parents came for the chance to work, to educate their 5 children, to be free from political oppression, and to live under just laws that apply equally to all, including, and perhaps most especially, to those in power. The Foreign Emoluments Clause of Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution was ratified in 1789. For our new government, potential interference from foreign powers was a grave concern then. And in simple language, the clause prohibits any person holding any office of profit or trust under the United States from accepting any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. A lawsuit has already been filed against the President, alleging that because he has refused to divest himself of his business interest in a host of foreign countries, he continues to receive benefits from those countries, including the grant of trademarks. A trademark is a benefit, whether it is used directly or licensed to others, or simply protects a global brand from use by others. Last month, after a decade of failing to grant the request, China awarded 38 trademarks that now protect the Trump brand in China. Impeachment has been used 16 times since our country's founding, including against presidents, senators, and federal judges. The process would permit further investigation into the president's business interests and ties to other countries and permit resolution of his legal claims. I thank you for your vote in support of the resolution that is before you tonight. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your testimony. I also want to remind folks that this meeting is being audio and videotaped, and there may or can be some excerpts of this meeting that will end up on local media or the other press. I want to make sure people are mindful of that. Joanna Schulman, followed by Gail Epstein.
Hello, Cambridge. My name is Johanna Schulman, and I stand before you first as an American, well, actually first as a Red Sox fan, go Sox, second as a Canterbridgian, and third as a member of CAST, Cambridge Area Stronger Together. My topic this evening is also impeachment, and I look forward to your unanimous vote of support. Now, impeachment is not retribution. It is not a tool for achieving a political objective. It is not a mechanism for removing an unpopular elected official from office. It is not even a partisan activity. Instead, impeachment is rooted in the Constitution as a powerful remedy to be used only if a president, regardless of party, popularity, or ideology, willfully violates the Constitution. And since Inauguration Day, despite having been warned that this would be the case, the President has been in violation of the emoluments clauses of the Constitution, as Judge Dufley just told us, both domestic and foreign. These clauses prohibit him from obtaining any financial benefits from foreign, state, or the federal government other than his salary, and there are dozens of examples of violations, but the Trump International Hotel, the tenancy of the Trump Tower, the extensive use of Trump-branded properties for presidential business purposes are just a few. But, City Council, we are not asking that you jump to conclusions, nor are we asking the United States House to do so. Impeachment is a process that begins with the House Judiciary Committee determining whether grounds for further investigation even exist. It is that step which this resolution demands. Why now? Why Cambridge? As I stated a few moments ago, I stand before you first as an American, and when a president willfully and self-righteously violates the Constitution, and if there is no condemnation from the public or Congress, the office of the presidency is soiled and our constitutional democracy is endangered. Every day we delay reinforces the idea that this behavior is normal. To date, 4 cities across the country have passed similar resolutions. We look forward to dozens more. Again, this is not a partisan anti-Trump request, but rather an exercise in civic duty of the highest order. And at its core, this is a resolution in defense of the Constitution. Now, Cambridge has long been a leader in defending constitutional rights. After waiting 19 years, my wife and I, together now 33 years, were married in this very chamber by Margaret Drury in 2004. But as citizens, we don't just have rights. We have responsibilities. Surely there is no more important responsibility before us than preserving our precious democracy, and no city more qualified than Cambridge to lead the way. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. I would ask people to refrain from clapping. Thank you so very much. Gail Epstein, followed by Zachary Burns.
Hello, my name is Gail Epstein. I'm speaking in support of Order Number 2, a resolution urging the House of Representatives to act on its constitutionally granted oversight responsibility by taking the first steps to begin impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump. Thanks to Vice Mayor McGovern for introducing this policy order and to Councilors Devereaux and Chung for co-sponsoring it. I speak as someone who's been a Cambridge resident for 32 years, and as a member of CAST, Cambridge Area Stronger Together. At this critical time in our country, the rule of law, the commitment to our Constitution, and the fate of our democracy are all at risk as a result of Mr. Trump's behavior. Because Congress has not yet taken adequate bipartisan steps to respond to dangerous presidential violations of the domestic and foreign emoluments clauses of our Constitution, it becomes necessary for individuals and local communities to step up and speak out to protect our system of government from being undermined from within. Massachusetts as a whole, and Cambridge in particular, have a history of taking bold steps to protect our democracy. At this moment, when so much is at stake, I hope that Cambridge will be the first of many cities and towns in the Commonwealth with the courage and will to pass resolutions like this. And in so doing, we will join a growing list of municipalities nationwide insisting that nobody is above the law and that Congress must do its job to protect the legitimacy and credibility of our government. Thank you for your consideration. I urge you to pass this resolution with unanimous consent. And while I'm up here, I also want to support and urge passage of the inclusionary zoning unfinished business item number 7. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Zachary Burns, followed by Ted Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor Simmons and council members. I'm Zach Burns of 220 Pearl Street. Thank you for considering the pet shop ordinance. Some Cambridge pet shops currently source mammals, amphibians, birds, and reptiles from inhumane breeding facilities. This is logical. If breeders can lower production costs by cramming dozens of animals into one cage and feeding them hormones to promote rapid growth, the pet industry can maximize its profit. Yet Cambridge consumers are willing to pay the price for ethical sourcing. How else could 4 Whole Food markets survive in a 3-mile radius? I take pride living in a progressive city that takes care of undocumented patients at Cambridge Health Lines and charges for environmentally destructive grocery bags. Tonight, we can uphold our commitment to social responsibility by adopting the pet shop ordinance. Crucially, it will end the sale of inhumanely bred animals in Cambridge. According to the World Wildlife Fund, 27 species become extinct every single day due to human pollution and habitat destruction. Cambridge residents know that we have gone too far and must mitigate losses to fellow animals and to our environment. On behalf of our community, and on behalf of the unnamed thousands of violently mistreated animals sold right here in Cambridge, I urge you to adopt the pet shop ordinance. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. If you have written testimony, please give it to Serge. He's our page, and we'll make sure that that information becomes part of the permanent record of the City Council. Ted Thompson, followed by John Tyson. Ted Thompson. John Tyson.
Thank you. My name is John Tyson. I'm a long-term resident of Cambridge, homeowner at 310.5 Pearl Street, and I'm here to speak about the pet shop ordinance. I feel like this is an important consideration for the city of Cambridge. We have an opportunity to profoundly affect our concept of compassion in our society as a whole. When I was growing up in the rural Southeast, we loved animals. We loved our dogs and cats and frogs and chickens and snakes, considered them parts of our families, and would have reacted forcefully to any attempt to do them harm. At the same time, we thought nothing about going out and shooting things. It was what was done. And we never once asked ourselves, are these animals that we're killing, are they individuals? Do they have families? Do they want freedom like we do? Do they feel pain? Of course, had we asked ourselves these questions, it would have altered our actions. As thoughtful human beings, we know that we're animals. We have bodies, senses, a nervous system through which we experience the world. We feel pain, seek companionship, love our families, long for freedom, and dream. Fortunately, our society is reaching a new level of understanding. Learning to respect our fellow creatures is the largest social justice movement of our time. This ordinance is a very small step, but a vitally important one. It will greatly reduce suffering and make us more aware and compassionate human beings. Abraham Lincoln said, "I am in favor of animal rights as well as human rights. That is the way of a full human being." Let us all work for kindness for all of our creatures. It will greatly benefit us all. I respectfully urge you to support this ordinance, and thank you very much for your kind consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Chris Green, followed by Patricia Nolan.
Hi there. My name is Chris Green. I'm a Cambridge resident of 1137 Mass Ave. I'd like to thank Vice Mayor McGovern for the pet store ordinance. It's an important issue for Cambridge. Cambridge shouldn't be part of an industry that treats any kind of animal, bird, rat, lizard, or dog, as a commodity, as these industries do. I don't want to take up too much time because I know there's already been testimony on this, and hopefully I will have a chance to give more testimony when the issue comes back before the Ordinance Committee. So I'd just like to encourage the City Council to move this issue forward to the Ordinance Committee for full consideration. And I also support the impeachment ban as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Patricia Nolan, followed by Amy Nadell.
Thank you. I do encourage the passage of unfinished business number 7, inclusionary zoning, and I hope you pass it as broadly as possible, including all previously permitted permits if you can. But I'm here to speak as a citizen, as a member of CAST, as a school committee member, and as a mother about policy order number 2 on the impeachment. Passing this resolution is to ask for an investigation, the start of impeachment. It is not whining since Trump won. It is not saying we know for sure if the Constitution has been violated. It is not even because of reprehensible acts, policies, or words that have been said by the President. Although people will say much worse about your intentions and reasons if you pass it. We know that. But we know it is about you doing your job by asking Congress to do its job. It is about our Constitution and upholding the laws of the country. Just as in 2000, the country became familiar with hanging chads, now the country is becoming familiar with the emoluments clause. It is critically important to our democracy to make sure no one is above the law and that the presidency is not used to enrich the president and the U.S. Treasury is not used as a personal piggy bank. There is evidence that is being done right now. 3 U.S. presidents have been impeached. In 1868, President Andrew Johnson was impeached essentially for firing one cabinet member. Ironically enough, he fired a Secretary of War who supported voting rights for free slaves. President Nixon was impeached for manipulation, lying, and involvement with criminal acts against the Democratic Party. President Bill Clinton was impeached for lying about an affair. None of those acts, all of which led to full investigation and impeachment hearings by the U.S. House of Representatives, are as egregious, threatening, or serious as the acts we know of so far by Trump just 2 months into his presidency. There is a reason the Constitution forbids the president explicitly from profiting from foreign governments or domestic entities. It threatens our democracy, cheapens our values, and erodes faith in government, which heaven knows we have far too little of already. As a school committee member and parent, I also worry really deeply about what message it sends to our children if we fail to hold the president accountable. As elected officials, I took an oath of office. Just on school committee, you all did on city council to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Part of your responsibility is to do just that by passing this resolution. And don't stop there. Then do all you can. I will certainly do all I can to see that it has impact and it actually happens.
I want to thank you for your testimony, and I also want to acknowledge that Ms. Nolan is a member of the Cambridge School Committee. Amy Nadell, followed by Ben Clements.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mayor Simmons, members of the City Council, Vice Mayor Mark McGovern. This statement is actually signed by 7 residents, including myself. First, we would like to thank you, Vice Mayor McGovern and Councilors Chung and Devereaux, for sponsoring Policy Order Number 2, which requests that the U.S. House of Representatives start an impeachment investigation of President Trump. Is that better? Thanks. Our concerns, as outlined in this policy order, are nonpartisan and, as such, are not concerned with any particular policy. Our plea for an impeachment investigation arises from the President so flagrantly violating the spirit and letter of the emoluments clauses of the Constitution that, if it is not stopped, puts the whole of our Constitution, our very foundational document, at risk. Policies can be changed, they can be voted up or down. We will always accept the legitimacy, if sometimes unhappily, of policies and presidents with whom we disagree, because we do agree on the sanctity of the process, which is derived from the Constitution. If we flout the legality of that Constitution itself, as this President so brazenly does, we have no solid ground on which we, citizens, or our representatives can proceed with debate about any policy. We cannot meet our rights and responsibilities as if we have understood them for more than 200 years. So thank you for consideration of this policy order, and we hope that the Council will pass the order with unanimous consent. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Ben Clements, followed by Virginia Coleman.
Thank you, members of the Council. My name is Ben Clements. I'm the chair of a national nonpartisan advocacy group known as Free Speech for People, and I'm here to speak in support of the resolution calling on Congress to investigate whether the President should be impeached. When we learned in January that President Trump would refuse to divest from his ownership of the Trump Organization, as he'd been repeatedly warned he needed to do to comply with the Constitution, we decided to launch a campaign calling on Congress to investigate whether he should be impeached. And on Inauguration Day, we launched that campaign and a website, www.impeachdonaldtrumpnow.org. Since that time, we have all had our worst fears and then some realized by this presidency. It's now clear we are looking at one of the most, if not the most, corrupted presidency in the history of the country. Not only has the President refused to divest of his business interests, but he has aggressively used the presidency to enrich himself, his family members, his business associates at public expense. From pressuring foreign dignitaries to stay at his hotels, to pressuring the Chinese government to reverse 10 years of precedent and grant him and his business valuable trademark rights, the President has been continuously and flagrantly violating the Foreign Corruption Clause, also known as the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. He has been constantly violating the Domestic Corruption Clause or Emoluments Clause of the Constitution by using federal taxpayer dollars to pay his businesses, his properties in New York and in Florida, untold sums, but by some accounts totaling millions of dollars for a variety of Trump family activities and government activities at his properties. There is only one remedy for this defiant and blatant violation of the Constitution, and that is impeachment in the House and conviction in the Senate. We know that Congress is slow to act, but day by day, the American people are demanding action and are demanding an impeachment investigation. Since we launched our site on Inauguration Day just over 2 months ago, almost 1 million people from all across the country have signed the petition calling for an impeachment investigation. And we've included model resolutions for municipalities to call for an impeachment investigation on our website. I'm pleased to say that the resolution before the Council tonight is adapted from that model. And Cambridge stands poised to become the 5th municipality and the first major city on the East Coast to call for an impeachment investigation. So thank you to the Council, and thank you for the citizens of Cambridge in leading the way to protect our democracy.
Thank you for your testimony. Virginia Coleman, followed by Dawn Summerfield. Virginia Coleman.
My name is Virginia Coleman. I live at 2 Berkeley Place. I'm here to support the pet shop ordinance. I believe that's item number 8 on your agenda, which very importantly protects against commercial sale animals that aren't cute and fuzzy. Lizards, snakes, guinea pigs, hamsters, birds. These activities, the breeding, if you can call it that, is not regulated at all by the Animal Welfare Act. Now, Trump wants to gut the Animal Welfare Act like everything else he's doing, but we still, at least nominally, we have it. But there is nothing for these other animals, and they're important and they count. And it goes to the compassion that I think is such an important part of Cambridge, and we can be a leader in this area. And unlike the other resolution, which is being discussed tonight with very good reason, we can do this. Unfortunately, asking for Trump to be impeached is not self-executing. Cambridge can do this. Finally, just briefly on the resolution about Trump, needless to say, I support it. However, I would just mention maybe the 25th Amendment, which is another way to go about doing this. There is a serious question as to whether this man is mentally competent to perform the job. And I see Councillor Devereux laughing. I do not think it's a laughing matter. Nicholas Kristof, who is a great deal smarter than I, has suggested this. It was discussed on Morning Joe this morning, and it's another way to go about it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Don Summerfield, followed by Chris Young.
Good evening, Mayor Simmons, Vice Mayor McGovern, City Councilors, my fellow residents. My name is Don Summerfield. In deference of your time, I'll be brief. I ask you tonight to support the resolution to direct the House of Representatives to direct an investigation whether there are grounds to impeach Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Chris Young, followed by Sue Butler. Chris Young. Sue Butler.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. I'm Sue Butler. I live at 14 Clinton Street. And I'm here to thank Councillor Devereux for filing Policy Order Number 2, directing the House of Representatives to impeach the President. You've had numerous descriptions of the corruption that's part of his behavior. Shortly after he assumed presidency, a building permit he wanted in Argentina that had been refused for years was overturned and given to him. I'd like to know what kind of intimidation occurred for that to happen. He's certainly taking monies and gifts that are not appropriate. He's taking privilege. He's exploiting intimidation. He's got his family involved in the government in ways that are profoundly inappropriate. In last week's New Yorker, there was a letter to the editor called Trump and Fraud, describing that the House of Representatives has the right, and has had the right all along, to demand Trump's tax returns from the IRS. I don't know what has immobilized them, but I'm horrified that that didn't occur in October before Harry Reid wrote a public letter saying that there was explosive information about Trump and Russia. There's an enormous amount of undisclosed information that I believe would show us vast amounts of corruption, manipulation, intimidation, all of which get Mr. Trump money, gifts, privilege that he does not deserve. The emoluments clause occurred when Benjamin Franklin accepted a gift from Louis XIV. A mirror gilded and covered with diamonds. This corruption of Trump's far, far exceeds a golden mirror, and it undermines the character of our country. Some of you were here many years ago when my dear friend Jacqueline Perry d'Alincourt came to visit City Council. She came with me and I said I had to speak and she refused. But she got here and she saw what was happening and she said, "It's okay, I'll talk." When I was introduced to her, I was told that she was number one in the French resistance. She would never admit to that, only number 3. But she came and she started, as she spoke, she remembered being in the concentration camp Ravensbrück, far in the north of Germany. And she remembered the sound of American bombers coming through the air. And she looked around this room and said, "Thank you, America. Thank you, America." I'm not sure if we are still that country. And I'm horrified by what I see.
Thank you for your testimony. Has Ted Thompson arrived? Ted Thompson. Chris Young. Susan Labadimbar, followed by Theodore Feldman.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Labandabar, and I live at 8 Brewer Street. 20 hours ago, I found out that there was a policy order relating to the possible impeachment of President Trump. I put a petition out on the internet and sent it mostly to Cambridge residents. Within 20 hours, 111 Cambridge residents signed this petition, along with many more. Here's the petition that they signed. Honorable Mayor Simmons and esteemed members of the Cambridge City Council, we, the undersigned residents of Cambridge, do solemnly urge you to take action on our behalf to safeguard our right to be governed by elected representatives who do not reap profits as a consequence of their office. Vice Mayor Mark McGovern and City Councilors Jan Devereaux and Leland Chung have proposed a resolution that would make our city the first in Massachusetts to ask the U.S. House of Representatives to investigate whether President Trump has been in continuous violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution since the day he assumed office. We urge you to approve this resolution to speak out against President Trump's apparent disregard for the foundational laws of our nation. It is our hope that the City Council will approve this resolution unanimously and convey it to the U.S. House of Representatives forthwith. This petition respectfully submitted by the undersigned residents of Cambridge. And I just wanted to read just a couple of the comments that people submitted along with the petition. Marilee Myers wrote, "This may be one of the most important votes of a citizenry in modern times." Lahas Heder wrote, "A very welcome initiative. Please publish on Facebook so other cities will see it and can follow our example." And finally, Joan Hill wrote, "Every local action contributes to a groundswell of opposition to Trump's outrageousness. Let's lead the way and present a model for other cities to follow." Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. The young man's going to give you a card, and if you could electronically send the petition, we can make it part of the record. Yeah. And thank you for your testimony. Theodore Feldman, followed by Susan Schlesinger.
Hi, good evening. I'm Theodore Feldman. I live at 31 Leonard Street in Somerville, and I'm here representing the Harvard Cycling Association. I think I'll probably be the only person here tonight talking about bike safety. Well, maybe not. But anyway, I'm here to actually talk about committee report item number 1, which was the report on the bike committee that we had back in February, and a few things on that report and a few things that actually weren't on that report. I would ask we have a discussion or an update about some of the progress and actually the communication of some of the progress on the spring bike work plan. That was a major discussion point at that meeting, and it's not clear where we are or if those progress updates are happening, at least from where I'm facing in the public. I think the bigger issue, and I saw this in an email Councilor Kelly sent out just before midnight last night, was about the issue of pleasing different groups of people, or the fact that there's really no particular one bike lane infrastructure that makes everybody happy. He is not a fan of the raised ones. There's some data from Cambridge that suggests many people feel safer on those. That's a matter of opinion. But I think one of the issues he raised there was an issue of cars becoming irate when cyclists do something that they lawfully can do on a crowded road or a road where the bike lane might be blocked, and that's take the full lane. And I think the real point raised there is that there needs to be an issue and a consideration for how there can be recourse for cyclists who are the victims of aggressive driving. That is something that has gone unchecked and unregulated, I think, in Massachusetts at large, and I know there are efforts underway to improve that. But I would ask that we take that issue and think about how we can open it up to further discussion to a larger issue of, again, recourse against aggressive driving, and the other issue raised there, which is enforcement of traffic policies. I think both from the cyclist perspective, we can be doing more to ensure that cyclists are obeying the law, and we can be doing more to ensure that motorists are aware and obeying the law, because in fact there are a lot of traffic laws pertaining to cyclists and motorists that many drivers are not actually aware of, and there's actually data from MassBike that supports that. And finally, I think the other piece of that policy is to also integrate an education piece, because this particular issue of sharing the street is one in which many motorists do not, in fact, know is actually on the law, particularly in situations where the right side of the lane or the bike lane may be obstructed by a pile of snow or a sequence of potholes or craters, and that is something that I think we can do a better job and work together on thinking about how we can educate the public. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Susan Schlesinger, followed by Gary Mello.
Good evening. Surprisingly enough, I'm here tonight to urge you to pass, I hope unanimously, the inclusionary zoning petition that's in front of you. For people who might not be as intimately connected with this petition as some of us are, it's a really important affordable housing tool for the city of Cambridge. What it says, what the law will say, is that if you are a residential developer, you need to provide 20% of the units in your building as affordable housing for low and moderate income people to live in. And that's up from the current ordinance, which calls for 11.5%. So it's a big jump, and it's extremely important in terms of the provision of affordable housing citywide. It means we have mixed income buildings mirroring our mixed income neighborhoods. As we look at what the current petition, the current law has provided, it's over 800 units in Cambridge. And that's without any government subsidy to it. So it's a vitally important tool for affordable housing going forward. It's particularly important in light of the policies that we're seeing from the Trump administration. And I think that if this is passed tonight, particularly if it's unanimous, because I think that's a tremendous sign for how important affordable housing is to the policymakers and to the residents of Cambridge, that we should all celebrate. It's really a tremendous step forward, but then in the very near future, we have to come back together again and look at what the next steps are, because we're not seeing resources growing on the national scene or on the state scene, and we are seeing the need for affordable housing growing. So this is an issue that we need more tools, more resources, and we need to talk about how we can do that. I also want to thank so many people that have been involved in this. I want to thank the council for all their work, particularly Mayor Simmons, who steered the ship through some rocky waters from time to time. I want to thank the city manager and the community development staff for all the hard work that they did putting into this petition. And I want to thank all my fellow residents who've come out over the past months and months and months for all the input that they provided. And hopefully we can move forward on this quickly tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Gary Mello, followed by Sarah Block.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gary Mello, and I live on Franklin Street. I ask that the city manager reconsider his conclusion that a stop sign is not warranted on Green Street as it intersects with Hancock at the bottom of the hill. Drivers approaching from the Plow and Stars see a sign indicating that crossing traffic does not stop, but except for us locals, the intersection might be invisible. A stop ahead and the stop sign itself on Green Street is a very inexpensive solution in a location where a problem really does exist. Secondly, Councillor Kelly suggests that an increased police presence in Central Square may be intimidating to some. I believe that citizens' sense of security should be paramount when considering a mini-station near Carl Barron Plaza, an indisputable failure in the urban experience. Lastly, I wish to address the spectator crowd, maybe even the TV audience. Have you looked at the council agenda this week? Just 2 policy orders. Yet another plug, sorry, for these dopey electric cars to be voted on by councilors who don't even know what a level 1 charger is, and in order to produce a suitably engrossed request to impeach the President of the United States. Fellow citizens, this is what puts us in the newspaper, on the funny pages. We're a city of 100,000 residents with a $600 million budget, and our legislative body, which won't even meet for the next 3 minutes, wastes your time posing for the TV cameras instead of pursuing worthwhile government. The rest of the country looks at us and sees Goofy Town, not Newtown. Councilors, you'll only be taken as seriously as you treat the job yourselves. Let's come back with beneficial proposals, not a PR campaign. And please, God, save me from Fox TV News.
Sarah Block, followed by John Tyson.
Hi, I'm Sarah Block. I live at 24 Shepherd Street. I've lived in Cambridge since 1970, and I'm just here to support the resolution to impeach President Trump. That's all I want to say.
Thank you for your testimony. John Tyson.
Do I get to speak again?
Oh, I didn't see you get signed up twice. Okay, Richard Krishnick. Followed by Carol O'Hare.
Richard Kreshnick, 20 Oak Street, speaking in favor of the inclusionary zoning ordinance and hoping that it does get passed unanimously. I'm a community development professional and also a member of the Housing Committee of the Cambridge Residents Alliance. I was very pleased in the ABC Better Cambridge program a few days ago where the Metropolitan Area Planning Council presented its latest information on affordable housing. It was the first time there was a considerable discussion about Cambridge in specific at that large assembly, and I was delighted that it was the first time in the past few years, at least that I've noted, where finally the argument seemed to get considerable recognition by the body that as long as Cambridge continues building high-density, high-rise buildings that are mainly market-rate buildings, the increase in land values that is caused by this forces more working-class and middle-class people out of the city than the affordable units that are developed by this high-density development helps to keep in the city. This is simply, but this is backed by the Lincoln Land Institute and by other professionals, and it's up until now, has been a very unpopular argument because it's very nice to be able to believe that we're doing all we can for affordable housing by building more and bigger, because that way we get more affordable units. It's not so comfortable to accept the reality that in doing so, we're still forcing more people out of the city than we're helping to stay in the city. This simply reinforces how important the 20% inclusionary zoning is. It's a great step forward, and it's wonderful the way I echo the former remarks that were made, and want to add my thanks in the same fashion. It's wonderful the way this is proceeding. It was wonderful last year the way the linkage requirement was nearly tripled. They're both great steps forward. But unfortunately, as if it weren't bad enough, now we have to face this onslaught of foreign investors from all over the world who have recognized Boston and Cambridge as these terrific markets and driving up prices even further. So we still have a lot of work to do even after we pass this inclusionary zoning ordinance. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony. Carol O'Hare, followed by Marilyn Wellens.
Good evening. Carol O'Hare, 172 Magazine Street. I'm speaking on a few things. City Manager number 7, rebuilding after fire. We hear often, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Well, the original version of this was not good. It wasn't even half bad. It needed major work, and it turned into a haste makes waste situation. It is now, I think, on the way to being improved and will come out right, but it took longer than it should have in a very urgent situation. So I would say haste makes waste wins in this case. I do have some language that I had suggested before, if the City Council wants it, that is from Brookline and from the Newton provision about rebuilding after catastrophe, and it addresses the problem that 2 years is not sufficient, and neither is an extension that requires continuous building after getting your insurance, because there can be strikes, there can be recessions, there can be all kinds of delays that are legitimate, and there should be a way of extending the 2 years. And in 4 lines, Newton and Brookline have captured it. If you would like that, I will give it to you. I do support the banners for the 2 in 3 locations in Cambridge for open studios. That is application number 1. Public space for public banners. I want to congratulate everybody who worked so hard on the affordable housing. It is a major coup. And as to the resolution about our president, on the way over here tonight, I wasn't going to speak about this, but on the way over here tonight, I heard on the radio that Trump, his holdings, his other holdings, this isn't relating directly to the emoluments, are in a revocable trust, which is claimed to be a safe place where he will not be able to have any influence. Well, everybody knows that a revocable trust is controlled by the trustor, that is Donald Trump, and one son and one employee are the trustees of that trust. The other son gives quarterly reports, and Donald Trump can withdraw funds and receive funds from that trust.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any written documents you'd like to leave with our page will be gratefully accepted.
Nothing.
Marilyn Wellens, followed by Heather Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Marilyn Wellens. I live at 651 Green Street. I'd like to thank the councilors for the resolution having to do with the emoluments clause. I think it's extremely important that the public interest be served. Now, how you define or understand the public interest can vary from time to time and place to place, but there are extreme cases where the public interest is pretty clear and is not served. So I think the Constitution says what one of those instances is, and it's when foreign emoluments come to the President. So I thank the councilors for filing this policy order. Continuing on the idea of public good and public space, I'd like to thank the council also for committee report number 2, and I'm glad that it's being held in committee. It has to do with leaf blowers. Once again, I'm talking about public space, noise, and light pollution. They're forms of air pollution. These things are bad for people. And the city council has a hard job. I mean, you can pass the resolution about the emoluments clause, I would think, rather easily. But on something like the leaf blowers and noise and light pollution, the attempt to have a significant outdoor lighting ordinance, let alone anything to do with indoor sources, this is hard work, and that's why people elect you, and that's why you're paid for your work, because it's hard. But I would say that I think the public does expect thoughtful, reasonable protection from the kind of work that you do, and these are important spheres. It's an election year. I call your attention to noise and light pollution and the city's inadequate regulation of them. And I'd also like to thank the council. I hope you will pass the proposed ordinance about animal cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Heather Hoffman, followed by Catherine LeBlanc.
Hello, Heather Hoffman, 213 Hurley Street. I thought I'd toss in the obligatory remark about impeachment. I recall Republicans saying that if Hillary Clinton had been sworn in as president, they would immediately introduce articles of impeachment. So I figure if breathing while Democrat is a high crime and misdemeanor, we probably have reached that level with the current administration. Now I'd like to talk about AV. Having been banished to the outside where I didn't have any way of hearing except by way of the AV in here, which is way better than the AV I've been experiencing at the senior center, I can tell you it's a big problem. And if we want people to be able to participate in public meetings, they got to be able to hear what's going on. So I really hope that this new AV system for the senior center results in the ability to hear from every part of the room and also for the ability to see from every part of the room. As you may or may not know, currently, if you go to a BZA meeting, you're invited to stand behind the BZA by the windows in order to see and hear, because you can't from the audience. And I was going to note the, I hope, monumental thing of passing the incentive zoning and inclusionary housing. Hot dog, guys. I hope that you will make this as strong as possible. As far as I'm concerned, this is something that is worth getting sued over. Do not give up anything that you don't have to give up. It may turn out that the law is against us on certain things. Well, fine, but we put up the good fight. Do not give up before you start. And then, with respect to the letter from Craig Kelly, I wanted to thank him very much for this because I pretty much agree. And I came in here and there were more police officers than I've seen in ages, and I regularly go to meetings in the police station. It does not make me feel better. And you know, I'm a small, older white woman who is born a citizen of this country. So I can just imagine how it makes people who don't have those advantages feel. Yes, there should be police officers and they should be doing their jobs, but there are limits to what we need, and I kind of wish that you'd left the police station in Central Square instead of bringing it to my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Catherine LeBlanc, followed by Ellen Schlachter.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak on number 7, the unfinished business. Please support unanimously the inclusionary zoning ordinance. I'm a disabled Cambridgeport resident, which allows me to live independently since my disability, trying to be in Cambridge so that I could get access to co-op, my doctor, anything that I need. I've subletted, I've been a roommate, I was in an MIT independent dorm, I lived in a legal boarding house, and now I'm in an apartment, which is great, except that it's about 90% of my SSDI income. So I hope that everything passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Ellen Schlachter.
Hi, good afternoon, Ellen Schlachter, 346 Concord Ave. I'm here definitely to support the impeachment policy order. People said it better than me, so I'm just going to say go for it, do it. I think it's great that we can be in the leadership on that issue. On inclusionary zoning, I really just felt like I wanted to be here today to celebrate. I know that's presumptuous because you guys haven't voted on the final piece yet, but I really just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your incredibly hard work on this, in the mayor's office, for initiating this, and for everybody on the committee and all of you. The only other thing I wanted to say was to echo Susan Schlesinger, who said we still have work to do. I got 2 calls from the mayor's office today, one for a family that are both being evicted, one for a family who's over income for inclusionary, and one for under income for inclusionary. So it just reminds me that there's still a lot to be done. But great work. Thank you so much. It's a really, really important day in Cambridge.
And thank you for your testimony. Clara Wellens, followed by Catherine Anderson. Clara Wellens. Catherine Anderson.
Hi, my name is Catherine Anderson. I live at 51 Ellery Street, apartment number 2. And I'm just also here to put in my support for unfinished business item number 7, the inclusionary zoning. I think it's jumping up to 20% and including all people in that would be really, really great step for Cambridge, especially as a sanctuary city. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Rachel Warden. Rachel Warden. This ends the number of people that were signed up for public comment. Is there anyone that did not have an oh, there's Rachel.
Hi, my name is Rachel Worden, and good evening, everybody. Cambridge, I'm sorry, I lose my words. I'm here to defend Donald Trump, our president, because everybody deserves a defense, and I'm sure our president does. And I also would like everybody to understand in Cambridge that a lot of people indeed voted for Donald Trump. He didn't just walk into the White House unsolicited. And I say that because people who are against him and want to take him out, they act like nobody was voting for him. And my understanding is there were Trump signs all across the country, from Western Massachusetts to California. So I think it would be good if we would recognize that other people exist and have ideas too. And I want to say I, myself, and my friends voted for Donald Trump because we watch what Hillary does, and we know that he is a nationalist and that she is a globalist. And all the rest of the people running for president were globalists. Now, if you have globalism, and I talk about this a little bit, because when I mention it, nobody seems to notice or grasp the idea, even educated people. Globalism means one world government, which means concentrated power. And I know, and everybody else should know, that concentration of power is dangerous. They say that power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the vast majority of us, and I would have to include myself, do not have that deep integrity that would be able to manage concentrated power. And that's why it's falling apart, and the EU is falling apart, because there's concentrated power that's not being used appropriately. Now, Hillary, to me, she's a disaster. She has a bad history. They say she has,
Madam Mayor?
What?
I don't think Ms. Clinton is on the agenda tonight.
What's that? Is somebody saying something to
At
me?
the end of your time. Hillary Clinton is not on the agenda. Please speak to Donald Trump if you would like to make a continued testimony.
Donald Trump's not on the agenda?
He is. Hillary isn't.
Well, that means we can play two sets of rules and not point that out. I have to point out two sets of rules being played. One for Hillary, where she gets to be a warmonger, murder whole countries, play part in human trafficking, etc. And he is just, maybe, I don't even know that he's doing anything that these people are claiming he's doing. I can tell you that he hasn't been given a chance. The media, the corporate media, who wants a one world government, is after him like white on rice, and they want to destroy him. And we pray, my friends pray, that he doesn't get assassinated every day. That's how much these people have at stake, because they've been sucking on the humanity, that includes everybody here, for decades, if not centuries.
Ms. Warden, your time has expired. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
If you've not had an opportunity to speak and would like to, please come and give your name and the item you're speaking to. The time allotted is 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry I didn't sign up, but
That's okay.
I'm in vote on this petition to the zoning ordinance amendment to strike out Section 823 of the nonconformity and subsidy ordinance for the new section for 823 for the firehouses on Berkshire Street.
Mm-hmm.
My house was one of the fires that I'm coming here just to say that I think we should try to pass this as soon as possible so we can move forward and rebuild. Thank you.
And please, can I have your name?
Joe Buswell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Buswell.
Thank you.
Mr. Valentine.
Peter Valentine, 37 Brookline Street. It's not that you can't have a country if all you do is say, I don't want, okay? You have to say who you want and why.
And you're speaking
all right?
to
It's
what,
not
Mr.
enough to say,
Valentine?
I don't want Donald Trump, okay? Who do you want and why?
And I thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to speak that has not signed up? Hearing none. Pleasure of the City Council. Oh, one other. If you have not spoken already.
No. Okay. Abra Berkowitz, 253 and a half Broadway in Cambridge.
Abra.
I just want to issue my support for Policy Order 2017, number 96, Policy Order 2017, number 95, and Ordinance 2017, number 6. I actually sent an email earlier that basically had the same ideas, but the idea being that, I mean, come on, like, we are people living in a city who have very strong beliefs and very strong convictions towards democracy, and we absolutely have the right to investigate Donald Trump's constitutionality or to support any measures that do so. I think it absolutely needs to start at the grassroots level. I think there's been very strong moves on the West Coast and also up in Vermont to do so, and I really look forward to building a strong coalition of cities and towns across the nation that are pushing the House of Representatives to question Donald Trump's constitutionality and do so in a transparent way. So I think the key is that we are the ones who are initiating this. We are going to push to the House of Representatives a very clear and transparent investigation, and it needs to start locally because that's the only way it's going to be transparent. I am very, very happy that this is coming forward. Absolutely, we need to demand that this investigation is fully transparent. So, and I also support having local businesses provide more electronic charging stations. I think it's an awesome way to decrease our use of fossil fuels and also just enable us to move regionally using electric cars. So thank you very much.
And thank you for your testimony. This concludes public comment. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor, I move to close public comment and move suspension of the rules to bring policy order number 2 before us. Oh, no, unless you had another plan.
We were going to, Council Carlone was going to suspend the rules to bring inclusionary first, and then we were going to do number 2. So if you would...
Defer. Oh, okay. He'll defer. Okay. So then I'll move suspension of the rules to bring policy order number 2, then he'll do that after.
Okay, very good. So on suspension on the rules, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the rules are suspended. I'm bringing policy order number 2, is it? Policy order number 2 forward. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and policy order number 2 is before us. Pleasure of the City Council. Vice Mayor McGovern.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who testified tonight and everyone who sent emails to us on this issue. I also want to thank CAST, Cambridge Area Stronger Together, for bringing this issue to my attention and working with me on this resolution, and also to thank Councillor Chung and Councillor Devereaux for co-sponsoring. This order was filed because we are concerned that Mr. Trump has violated the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution, which in part prohibits the President from benefiting financially from business dealings with domestic and foreign governments while in office. There are numerous examples of Mr. Trump's many businesses having financial dealings with both foreign and domestic governments. And 2 that I would highlight, one is that Trump International Hotel, which is owned by the President, continues to recruit business from many foreign governments who routinely hold events and stay in Washington, D.C. for meetings. And another example is at Trump Tower, the bank called Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, which is owned by the government of China, leases property in Trump Tower, paying rent to the President. The President also has another building that is has close to a $1 billion loan with this bank. So in a sense, our President and his businesses are potentially $1 billion in debt to the government of China through this bank. What is further concerning to me is that although Mr. Trump claims to no longer be involved in the operations of his businesses, he has sadly, in my opinion, lost credibility due to his consistent and seeming pathological lying. He has lied about things that he has said when he is on video having said them. He has lied about things that he has done that we know he has done. He has lied about members of his staff having contact with Russian officials when we now know that there's evidence to suggest otherwise. Why, given all these falsehoods that he has told, should we believe him when it comes to his business dealings? The answer is we shouldn't, and that's why we need an investigation. Every American, regardless of party, should be concerned that we have a president who may be financially compromised to foreign governments. The Emoluments Clause was created to protect both the president and the American people from a conflict of interest between our nation's leader and domestic and foreign governments. When Mr. Trump is sitting across the table from Chinese leaders, we want him to be thinking about what is in the best interest of America and not how his decision may impact his billion-dollar loan with the Chinese government. This is a question of national security. What we are seeing with Mr. Trump is unprecedented. I've disagreed with presidents before, both Republican and Democrat, but I have never seen a president so potentially compromised as Mr. Trump. The American people deserve answers, and that is why we're calling for an investigation, because the risk is too great. I hope this order passes unanimously, and I hope that other cities and towns join us in urging the House of Representatives to call for an immediate investigation so we can be sure that the President of the United States is not violating the Constitution. And as far as the concern that this is not city council business, I cannot think of anything more important than a local government standing up for the rights of the people that live in their city and live in the rest of the country. This is a constitutional matter, and if other cities and towns look at Cambridge and say, this is just Cambridge being Cambridge, I say thank you.
Further discussion. Councilor Mazin.
Thank you. Thanks to Vice Mayor McGovern, to Councilors Chung and Devereaux for forwarding this. I think this is something that we've all been kind of juggling and thinking about, and I'm very proud to vote for it today. I will say, President Trump has definitely benefited in the ways that you mentioned. There's almost no question, right? But then the question is, once you look into it, is how deep the rabbit hole goes. There's the potential that Russia has influenced our election and continues to influence the executive branch of government. And of course, there's all kinds of other constitutionally problematic executive orders and other things coming out of the Oval Office. So, to the one or two people who had comparisons to make between Clinton, Trump, or anything else, we're really focused on one thing here, and it's about whether or not the President of the United States can do his job and represent the people of the United States of America. Now, to the Council and to those, this is obviously an issue that's seen almost unprecedented traction here with folks in the city. To those who really want to move this work, we could be in Washington, D.C. rallying for this work. We could be here rallying. We could be influencing our Democratic State Committee or City Committee. We could be mobilizing. We could make Massachusetts a bastion, an engine for progressive organizing. So for those people who as Vice Mayor McGovern noted, ask, why is the city doing this when this is a constitutional or federal issue? I think we're doing it because we actually do think we can have an impact, and because the people of this city can then go on to spread the message as the good people from Free Speech for People were discussing. What I would hope we would do is go on to bring that battle to the likes of Representative King, who said, we can't make the future of this nation with other people's babies or some garbage like that, and that we pursue this epidemic pursue this epidemic of bad governance and bad leadership, and in many cases illegal behavior, as far as we can. That this doesn't start and end with statements or press or attendance, that this is really the work of a daily practice. And I'm encouraging those who are looking on, whether skeptical or totally bought in, to make sure that if this is your issue, if you are here to speak on behalf of this issue, that you're then following that up with 5 minutes of daily work. Call Vice Mayor McGovern's office, call mine, call any of these counselors, or reach out to Free Speech for People so that they can spread this message up and down the East Coast and all over the country. Truly, this is not something that we're going to achieve unless millions and millions of people opt in to carry the load together. So that's basically all I have to say. The last thing I'll say on this issue is that sometimes when I'm bringing something forward that isn't necessarily a municipal issue, what I hear is we wouldn't want the City Council to give the people of Cambridge the impression that we can deliver on something that we can't deliver on. I am with you in this, and I'm with you in all of the reaches that the council can make in order to achieve a better world and in order to be the source of organizing and the source of good taste and community building for our region. But I then hope that that same argument that I've heard before against my maybe idealistic policies won't be used again. That if something is a lofty goal like a progressive tax or like a different way of establishing our real estate tax so it can be graduated with income, if these are difficult to achieve, I don't want to hear that we shouldn't embark on those issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mazin. Councilor Devereaux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Vice Mayor McGovern for inviting me to co-sponsor this, and huge thanks to the members of CAST, many of whom I know and respect greatly. I want to just comment on what this is not about. This is not, as some of the speakers have pointed out, retribution or a referendum on Trump's policies. I think many people know how the majority of people in Cambridge feel about Trump's policies, but that is not what this is about. Nor is this about political grandstanding or scoring points with the media. Frankly, I wish all of these cameras that are pointed in our faces were here because of the vote that we're going to take next on the inclusionary housing, which is historic in its own right, folks, and which we've worked on for the better part of the year. This is also not a waste of time. We've had people write to us and say, don't you have anything better to do? Why are you wasting the public's time on, this silly resolution? Well, in fact, it didn't take us very much time because the good people of CAST and the good people, Free Speech for People have done their homework. And so they basically presented us with this resolution. Thank you very much. It didn't take any of our staff time. And it didn't prevent us from working on the other weighty issues that we have before us. And the fact that there are only 2 policy orders on the agenda tonight, well, sorry, folks, that, sometimes the schedule doesn't work out that way, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So what this is about, as others have said far more eloquently, is safeguarding the reputation of the office of the president and upholding the public trust. So impeachment is a process, and I hope that other far less liberal cities will look to our example. I know that everyone expects the People's Republic of Cambridge to do this kind of thing, but when it will really gain momentum is when cities that are not known as the People's Republic of anywhere jump on this bandwagon and say, hey, something doesn't smell right. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Devereaux. Councilor Chung.
Thank you. Just want to thank my co-sponsors and Nan Duffley, who brought this to my attention originally. And, I think the question is not whether President Trump will be found guilty. It's how much damage he's going to do before we put a stop to him. And I think that, to the criticism that, why are we doing this? I don't think this is going to pass the council, I hope, unanimously. I don't think any of us are naive enough to think that, we have great congressional representation. I'm sure they've all thought about the possibilities of impeachment and how to prevent, and they're talking actively about how to stop Trump from continuing his agenda. We're not thinking that this is going to actually lead to the impeachment of Trump. But what it is going to do, I think, is hopefully awaken residents of Cambridge to the issues that we're facing. This council has been talking regularly about how to mitigate the damage that the President Trump's administration is doing to Cambridge. He's cutting funding for affordable housing. He's cutting funding, cutting research for combating climate change. He's cutting funding for, the social services, all the things that Cambridge relies upon to enact its values that cities across the country rely upon. He is actively attacking the bedrock of our community and the social structures that, make our community whole. We're dealing with that on the council on an active basis, and we have to be willing to say, he's actively trying to go against us. We have to go against him, but residents need to be recognize that they're in this fight with us. We're anticipating, I think, if he's allowed to continue in office, years ahead of having to face very difficult choices and trying to figure out how we're going to make ends meet to continue to support the people in our community that we've been doing for years. So I think this is not just an empty statement. I think it is, very resonant to, there is the issues of what, the many conflicts of interest, but there's also the issues of what this presidency is going to mean to our community, which I think we have not yet even begun to scratch the surface of in terms of how deep it's going to cut if he's allowed to continue to cut. So thank my colleagues in advance for passing this tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Chung. Further discussion? Councilor Carlone.
I'll be very brief. The Constitution is, in essence, a set of rules to run a country and to run the different bodies of government. And just like our set of rules here, once they start breaking down, the system breaks down. And this is a flagrant breaking of rules that we all knew was in the process of happening, including the Congress. And although when I first read the policy order, I thought, now, why are we doing this? I have to admit that it's better to deal with it as early as possible. And if someone isn't following the rules, which is meant to protect the country, you have to challenge that and bring it forth. So I heartily support the policy order.
Thank you, Councilor Carlone. Further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Ma.
Very briefly, I understand the frustration that many people have regarding the president, and I think we can look at this and we perhaps are looking at it differently. My belief is this is a federal issue, and that we have elected representatives that are responsible for the city of Cambridge. We have Senator Warren, who is a Cambridge resident and has been an outspoken critic of the president. And we are very ably represented by two Democratic congressional members in Mike Capuano and Catherine Clark. And it is my belief that that is who should be leading this effort. And that I think to have this come to the City Council, well, I understand it. I don't believe it's the right place to be. And I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. But, you know, I think that if we did not have the activism that we have in our elected federal representatives, I could see this. But we have very, very active representatives in Washington representing the city of Cambridge and the people and the thoughts of the people of Cambridge. And for that reason, I am not going to vote for the resolution.
Thank you, Councilor Ma. Further discussion? And I'd like to hear, is anyone that has not spoken like to speak on this before we go around a second time? Councilor Toomey, would you like to
thank you,
speak on
Madam Mayor, and to everyone who has testified here this evening. I also will be voting present on this evening. I think along with a lot of other people was devastated on November 8th. And the results, I have to echo what my colleague, Councilor Ma, said, that this is certainly, we have excellent representation in the congressional and the Senate, and I think they should be taking up the bandwagon on this, and I look forward for them, for their guidance and support and making sure that this is followed through. And so I will be voting present on this evening, and wasn't my decision on November 8th, but it's time that to let our national elected officials handle this. And I appreciate everyone's sentiment on this issue as we face these very difficult, trying times.
Thank you, Councilor Toomey. Does anyone want to speak on this before that has not spoken? Hearing none, I believe, Councilor Magazine, you had your hand up first. Councilor Mazin, followed by the Vice Mayor. Councilor Mazin?
Well, Councilor Devereaux, Mayor.
Councilor Devereaux.
Been ahead of me.
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to pile on and maybe respond to what Councilors Marr and Toomey have said. I've had two experiences that lead me to believe that it's right to pass this, even given the objection you gave, which sounds reasonable.
Councilor, if I may, as Robert Rules suggests, we like to say, as my colleague may have suggested, as opposed to call them by their name. Thank you.
At any rate, as my colleagues have suggested, my experience was that I approached a very well-known senator that we would all know and appreciate. And I was talking about the importance of affordable housing and the importance of a federal package for the cities that just don't try their best but can't get enough going. And 5 minutes into the conversation, the senator basically said, it's a really good point, and no one is discussing it in the House, and no one is discussing it in the Senate, despite the fact that it's one of the nation's leading issues. And they said since Barney Frank left the House, which was a long time. And my takeaway from the conversation, I think the senator's takeaway as well, was that we should really be engaging in this conversation from the grassroots level up to the houses of Congress more regularly. And that, be it as it may that these bodies are very competent and that these individuals are especially competent to do this work, I don't think that they will be able to do their utmost and do it with the closeness to people's real urgent needs and real urgent experiences if we do not also help shepherd this up the ladder. And that's exactly why I said, I won't belabor this or say the second story, but it's similar. This is exactly why I said we need to follow this up by actually pursuing specific courses of action in our organizing, in our city, and then again in the district and in D.C. with our elected representatives. But I don't think you can fully and exhaustively handle this issue without also taking these actions here in this body. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Vice Mayor McGovern, followed by Councilor Devereaux.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say I certainly, I know both personally and professionally Congressman Capuano, Congresswoman Clark, and Senator Warren, and certainly know how incredibly capable they are. I also know how incredibly capable our state delegation in Massachusetts, how incredible they are. But just for folks to understand, this is not unprecedented for the council to do. We pass resolutions quite often asking our state delegation and in this case our federal delegation to do certain things. We file whether it's to support a specific bill, whether it's to ask them to take action. So I completely respect anyone's position and reasoning for voting in favor of something or not. But I certainly don't want the public to think that this is somehow meant to be a slight on the capabilities of our congressional delegation, because it absolutely is not. I've worked very hard for all three of those people. But it's also rather routine for us to do. And I'm sure we will see many more policy orders and resolutions asking for our delegation to vote a certain way or support a certain thing. And that is our responsibility, I see it, as local officials representing Cambridge, to make sure that our delegations know how we feel as representatives of this city.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Devereaux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, just briefly, I wholeheartedly agree with what Vice Mayor McGovern just said. To say that you're going to vote present or even oppose this on procedural grounds seems to me very odd and rather pointlessly oppositional. I'll be very candid. I simply don't understand that when our role as the elected officials who are closest to the ground, closest to the citizens of cities that state reps and congressmen at the U.S. House represent, we are the relay. We carry the grassroots up the chain. And I think on an important issue like that, like this one, it's absolutely our place to amplify what we know. Obviously, Senator Warren and Representative Capuano and Representative Clark are saying this is us doing our job. We have many resolutions on our agenda for things pending at the State House where we know that Representative Decker is going to vote in favor of them, but yet we still say, yes, Marjorie, we want you to know that you have the citizens of Cambridge behind you. So I'm completely perplexed by this, and I'm very disappointed, frankly, that this won't be a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none. I do plan to support this order for a couple of reasons. One, I believe all politics is local, and I think that on the federal level, they're certainly making noise, and I think here on our level, we should make a difference. I thank my colleagues for putting forward this order, and I want to support it. And I recognize that one city council, particularly one from a deep blue state, does not lead the national conversation, but I do think we are responsive and responsible to the citizens, and this may not, as you can see with this council, may not be the opinion of all the people that live in Cambridge, but I am taking this vote from my personal opinion as someone who's worked in this body, who got together in November before the president-elect raised his right hand to take the oath of office and say we would stand and be firm on our opinion and our stance on Sanctuary City, and we would go further to do training so that our citizens from wherever they may come from would feel comfortable in our city. And we go further than that from the school committee and make our schools, or say that our schools will be sanctuary schools. So a lot of times it's just letting people know that we believe and we will fight and stand with you, even though it may not have an immediate impact, because I do believe a single drop will wear a rock. And so the conversation has to start somewhere. And, you know, Cambridge is predictably progressive, and we shouldn't shy away from that. And so the people of Cambridge have said they want us to start this, and they want us to start this evening. So I support the resolution for many reasons, and I think this president or that president provides new reasons every day that for us to, and my colleagues, to want to introduce this order. And I suspect before it's all over, we'll be bringing up other orders to protect and support our citizens in Cambridge. And so, as we all know, as we watch television and the news every day, the federal government is finding ways to choke off funding for our housing, for our education. And I think I'm just incredulous that someone would say that I'm going to hold back, or would like to hold back federal funding, which I don't believe he can do, but just to threaten, and that's going to impact children and families and seniors. And I'm incredulous that this happens, and I'm supporting this order, and this is our way as a council, whether it's unanimous or not, saying we're going to stand up against you, and we're going to stand up with all those others, and maybe we will be in the front of the vanguard that says enough is enough. If there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote on a motion from the Vice Mayor McGovern. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call, Madam Mayor.
The Vice Mayor is called for the roll. Madam Clerk.
On policy order number 2, Council Calhoun.
Yes.
Council Devereaux.
Yes.
Council Kelly. Yes. Council Ma.
No.
Council Mazin.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGovern.
Yes.
Council Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the order is adopted on the affirmative vote with 7 in favor, 1 recorded in the negative, no one absent, and 1 recorded present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move, please. I ask people to order. Would like to preserve, please, order in the council. I understand your enthusiasm, but please, I'm going to respectfully ask for decorum. We move now to the next order of business. Council Carlone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to suspend the rules to bring forth number 7 under unfinished business, the zoning ordinance for inclusionary housing.
Thank you, Councilor Carlone. Council Carlone moves suspension. On suspension, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and we're now in suspension. I'm bringing tabled matter, unfinished business from the calendar forward. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the number 7 is now before us. Council Carlone, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, having chaired the Housing Committee with the Vice Mayor, this is an ordinance that has been conceived and worked on for a long time, and we believe has come to the point of great support. There might have been some issues that we had to refine and work on, but the overall basis is a key component of making greater number of units in Cambridge affordable. So I have other comments that I'll add later, but I think this is a great moment, and I'm sure others have some additional words.
Thank you, Council Carlone. Pleasure of the City Council. Council Devereaux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to all, you especially, and Vice Mayor McGovern as co-chairs of the Housing Committee who got this conversation started, and to everyone else who participated in this over the many months. I want to say that I hope that that we as a council and the Housing Committee don't rest on our laurels, and that we do as people have advised us, which is to take up the next challenges, which would be helping middle-income families, people who are stuck in that gap that are either don't make enough, make too much, need too much space, whatever. That's, I think, the next hurdle, and I hope we can start working on that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Devereaux, Council Mazin.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm proud of the work of the council on this. This is something that has been in my hopes and dreams bucket since 2013, when I was saying maybe we could get to 20-25%. And I remember that a lot of folks said that's just not going to work. It's going to slow down building in the city. I think there's still people saying that. It's a similar thing we hear when there's building codes for green construction or net zero. It's the same thing that we've heard for years, and it turns out that in Cambridge you just can't keep us down. The property values are just through the roof, and it seems we're recession-proof now. Looking back over the last 6 years, I've got to knock on every surface around you for that one. But my point is this: we're still going to have an unbelievable amount of construction, and yet we're also going to get a new 20% of all new luxury development, some say market development, as affordable housing. And it's I think overdue. It's something that I'm proud that we're doing now. And the only feedback I want to give is on the positive side, that we were able to reach consensus on the PUD provision and make sure that this was as fair and comprehensive an application of the new standard as possible, getting the most value for the city of Cambridge. And on the other hand, the feedback is I wish we had done it faster, because I really feel like we had near supermajority consensus from day one. I really feel like we could have said 20% and these provisions and had the difficult conversations in the first couple of weeks. And for some reason, I think this jogged on a few more months than necessary, and in a very major way, that length of time obviated some tens of millions of dollars of affordable housing in the North Point major amendment to their project, and in other projects that came and passed during the time of our discussion. And I wish we had been able to achieve this standard for those projects, and hope that in the future we will keep those in mind as we think about our scheduling. Certainly that was my goal, and one that I will, well, if I'm ever chairing that type of committee, we'll try to hark to in the future. The last thing is that I think we can do more. That 20% affordable inclusionary housing is not going to solve the city's housing crisis. In fact, as someone in public comment said, the very nature of luxury housing development creates its own displacement and furthers its own negative community impacts, which cannot be outpaced by the positive inclusionary housing impacts that we seek to promote. So while we were moving up towards a better standard, we must, as Councilor Carlona said many times, continue to invest in city funding of affordable housing. We must engage more and more nonprofit developers and tax credits, and we must truly change by an order of magnitude the amount of new affordable and especially new middle-income housing units that we make over the next 10 years. And I'm fully in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mazin. Councilor Toomey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you and your office for your leadership on this very important issue, achieving this evening to vote on this 20% inclusionary. I also want to especially thank the housing advocacy organizations and members of the general public for their many long hours and weeks and months of work on this issue. They really brought us to the finish line. I just want to really thank them for the tremendous amount of commitment that they've had to affordable housing. And it shows the importance of providing this, and hopefully that soon the argument of fighting against Mass and Maine of providing 50 units of affordable housing there will end, and people will come together and end that opposition to that, so that they can move forward to provide 50 desperately needed units of housing. So I'm imploring everybody here in this room and outside to make sure that development moves forward so we can provide those units, 50 plus, of affordable housing for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Toomey. Vice Mayor McGovern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to keep my comments positive. I think we can talk a lot about housing policy and how to increase affordable housing. I was at the ABC conference that was mentioned in public comment, and one of the other things they said was that if people think that not building market rent housing is going to stop gentrification, you're fooling yourself, because people with money are coming to Cambridge whether you build housing or you don't. So we can have that debate all night long, but that's not what this is about. This is about us passing an ordinance that is probably, I would say definitely, the most monumental thing that this particular council has done in our 2 years, and probably that the council has done in a long time. And I really want to thank Madam Mayor. It was a pleasure to, and it is a pleasure, we're still co-chairs of the Housing Committee, but to go through that process with you and following your lead and your mentorship in that, through that process was terrific. I certainly want to thank Councilor Carlone, Councilor Chung as chairs of the Ordinance Committee, and the Cambridge Residents Alliance, Better Cambridge, the Affordable Housing Trust, CEOC, all the people, who came out, the YWCA, everybody who came out and testified to this. We know that this isn't going to be the sole answer. We've said that from the beginning. But this is going to create hundreds upon hundreds of new units for people. And, when the Berkshire Street fire happened and we were scrambling to find housing for people, about half of those units were inclusionary units. And we had them because we have this ordinance. We had them because there was housing development in the city. And so, yes, we're all on board that we have to do more things. We're all on board that there's certainly more to be done. But I don't want people to lose sight of how incredibly monumental this is. Almost doubling the amount of affordable housing that developers have to provide to the city at their dime, not ours. Right? Hundreds of millions of dollars is going to come in new affordable housing to the city of Cambridge at no cost to the taxpayers or the city. A requirement, not a recommendation, but a requirement for developers to provide affordable 3-bedroom units so that families can finally afford to live in Cambridge. And a requirement that we're going to review this policy so that we don't have another 20 years before making a change. Those 3 things are going to help people in ways that we can't even imagine right here tonight. And so, I don't want to sour this by all the things we could be doing or should be doing. This is huge. It's significant. I'm honored to be a part of it. And this is going to be one of those things that someday we're going to look back after our time here is done and say, I did something good. And I'm really proud to be here for this vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Ma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, too, want to thank the co-chairs for the work that they have done to shepherd this through. I do, in particular, though, want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for your steadfast support of affordable housing, not only with this program, but over the past many, many years in making sure that the council is focused on affordable housing. When this program passed, going back many years ago, I think we should remember and take stock in the fact that it took a number of years to start to see the units come forward. And the vast majority of those units it has really been the past 5 or 6 years that we've seen those come to light. And now, standing near 1,000 units, it is quite an extraordinary program. We do have to remember that it is only one piece of the pie, and that the city's comprehensive housing program, to look at programs like the Switch House at Harvard, that did allow us to give a neighborhood preference to moderate income folks, or the new program that opened at the corner of 3rd Street and Binney Street, which took moderate income housing. And I think we have to continue to look at that and say that there are other ways that we should be looking at housing in the city and in this community. But I think today is a proud day for all of us, and I think it's a good day for the city of Cambridge as we look forward to what lies ahead in looking to increase the housing stock for the people of Cambridge, and especially looking at how this is going to affect those 3-bedroom apartments, the family-size units that there is a dire need for in the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Ma. Further discussion? Councilor Chung?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to, I think it's all been said already. This is monumental. I think this is one step in a series of many steps that the council is taking and will take to try and address housing. And we are clearly in the midst of a housing crisis, when you have graduates from MIT coming to testify that they're going to apply for affordable housing, that just something is broken in the city. We clearly need to do more, and this council, I think, has shown more courage and more determination to do more than anyone expected of it. You know, from the incentive rate to now the inclusionary to looking forward to Councilor Carlone and I are talking about how do we make sure that the mix between commercial and residential development is favoring residential. There's a lot of things that this council is doing, but I think that this is a sign that the council is clearly taking. Well, we all know that we have a housing crunch in the city and taking it very seriously and doing everything we can and using all the tools at our disposal. And want to thank again Mayor Simmons and Vice Mayor McGovern for the long work, and for my co-chair Councilor Carlone for the Ordinance Committee for getting this done. I think this is a huge piece of zoning. This will have monumental impact. We got it through, I think, very, very quickly. This is not the end. There's still a lot more to do, but I think I think the council as a whole deserves a round of applause. And although don't applause because you're not allowed to applause because of the quorum rules, but I think this is a good thing that we're doing. So great, excited to get it done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Chung. Any further discussion on this? Councilor Carlone, coming back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm thrilled to hear that everybody says this is only a part of the solution, the public speakers as well as the council. And we certainly have actions or issues before us that can affect affordable housing. The 20% affordable housing will affect land value. There's no question of that. And there might be a subtle delay in new construction. But frankly, the land value is out of whack anyway. And the way we can deal with that, in part, is to reform zoning, much like the Central Square zoning was recently done, which says at least half of new construction has to be residential on any site. That's the beginning. My colleague across the way, we're not allowed to mention names, is that true?
Women are being contentious.
This is in salute Councilor Kelly's notion on Airbnb and limiting the number of units that can be rented out versus leasing them as apartments seems directly tied to this. Promoting university housing, the council's been talking about this for decades, it seems. And at least with Volpe in mind, this can be an area that is now open for discussion with MIT. And perhaps most importantly, getting the budget, our budget, to reflect that this is the number one issue in the city. And this can be done in a number of ways. It could be done through issuing bonds as well as putting a proportion of our budget in affordable housing beyond the surtax. The last thing I'll say is through urban design. And you've heard me say this before. 6-story buildings cost 67% per square foot of what high-rise costs. So if you want affordable housing or increase the amount of affordable housing, you build what is called mid to low rise, 6 stories and lower. That's how you get affordable housing, more than the 20% that we're talking about. So I'm looking forward to this issue being explored in all the ways discussed already by others and that I've mentioned, and all these are doable. They're all doable. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Carlone. Further discussion? Well, then let me just say, as before we call for the vote, I do want to certainly thank the citizens and the housing advocates for their hard work, continued hard work, to help and support the council as it did its work. I'm not going to name people because I'll forget someone, and so just please believe, understand, with a deep level of gratitude, I want to thank everyone that participated in making this vote that we're about to take possible. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues. The Committee on Housing, the Committee on Housing is not a committee of the whole, but the entire council came and participated in the discussions, and that really speaks to the level and the commitment that this council had around affordable housing. You know, we applaud, we often talk about diversity in our city, but to have diversity, particularly socioeconomic diversity, we have to be intentional. It will not happen on its own. And we have taken some very bold and important steps. This is only one. By taking property by eminent domain was extraordinary and an important step. Looking at Airbnb is extraordinary and an important step. Looking at our condo conversion practices is an extraordinary and important step. And as a number of my colleagues have already said, this is not one and done. There's so much work that is yet to happen in order for us to keep Cambridge diverse and affordable, but this is clearly an important step. So I am extraordinarily proud and happy that we're taking this vote. I know there's so much more work to be done, but for tonight, we will have gotten the brass ring on this one. So I want to applaud the community and my colleagues on the council for their hard work. That being said, pleasure of the City Council. On a motion by the Vice Mayor, roll call, Madam Clerk. I'm sorry? The question comes on passing to be ordained on or after April 3rd, 2017. Madam Clerk?
On ordination, Council Calhoun.
Yes.
Council Chung, Council Devereaux.
Yes.
Council Kelly. Council Ma.
Yes.
Council Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern.
Yes.
Council Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Oh, yes.
And the inclusionary housing ordinance is passed to be ordained by an affirmative vote with 9 in favor.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Vice Mayor McGovern.
I'd like to move reconsideration, hoping the same will not prevail.
He needs suspension of the
On
rules.
suspension.
Move reconsideration,
Madam
hoping the
Mayor?
same will not prevail.
And let me explain reconsideration. Reconsideration basically is often important and used when votes are taken as important as this one. It makes the vote final. It says that we will now go forward. It will not reconsider it. This will not come back up for a vote. So it basically gives finality to this particular item. So we have to suspend the rules in order to get to reconsideration, and then we vote reconsideration, saying the same will not prevail. Members that do not want to bring this up again will vote no. It will not be reconsidered, and the vote will be affirmed.
Madam
Council
Mayor,
Kelly.
my understanding is that this petition expires if we don't finalize it.
Right, and thank you.
Which is an important thing to keep in mind when we suspend the rules, is why we are doing that.
Right.
It makes sense in this case.
Thank you so much, Council Kelly. As Council Kelly, maybe reiterate, this has to be voted this evening. It cannot be reconsidered, otherwise it becomes moot. So thank you, Council Kelly, for bringing that up. Madam Clerk, roll call on suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. No, the ayes have it. We are in suspension. On reconsideration, can we get to the roll call? Do we, we don't, I even love it better. On reconsideration, hoping the same will not prevail. A no vote says we will not reconsider. Yes says we do. So in order to make this final, I respectfully are asking the council to vote no. So on reconsideration, hoping the same will not prevail. All those in favor say no.
No, say aye.
Say aye. All those in favor say aye. Boy, this does not work. It's not working well. Okay. They didn't say anything.
That's what we want.
Okay.
We want 0.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the nays have it. I'm so excited I can't get it right. Okay. And the ordinance is not reconsidered. Thank you. Pleasure of the City Council. We now go.
Madam Mayor, move the manager's agenda before us. I'd like to pull 7, 8, and 9, please.
Okay. On a motion by Councilor Chung to bring the city manager's agenda before us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the agenda is now in front of us. Councilor Chung is asked to pull number...
Pull number 7, number 8, refer to the petition, and pull number 9.
Okay. So, Councilor Chung, you're pulling number 7.
To amend, yep, and then referring number 8 to the...
Well, we're not going to
pull
talk
number
about
7.
the dispossession. 7, Councilor Chung. 8, Councilor Chung. Was that all?
9.
And 9. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor
I'd like to
Fellow.
pull number 1.
Devereaux. Councilor Devereaux.
No, I was going to pull number 1, so maybe
Councilor Devereux, would you like to pull number 5 for me?
Would you like me to pull number
Please,
5?
I would.
Well, can I pull number 6 at the same time then?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Pleasure of the council. Hearing none, we will have a roll call on the balance, number 2 requiring 2 roll calls, and I will read it as follows. Transmitting communication from Louis A. D. Pasquale, City Manager, relative to the appropriation of $2,875,000 from free cash to the General Fund Public Works Other Ordinary Maintenance Account $1,940,000 and to Public Works Public Investment Fund $935,000 to cover winter 2016-17 snowstorm expense associated with snow plowing, contracts, salt, and other material repair costs and equipment. Madam Clerk.
On the consent agenda items for 2A, 2B, 3, and 4, Counsel Calhoun.
Yes.
Counsel Chung. Counsel Devereux.
Yes.
Counsel Kelly. Counsel Lamar.
Yes.
Counsel Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern. Counsel Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the consent agenda items are adopted on the affirmative vote of 8 in favor with 1 recorded as absent.
Thank you. We move now to number 1. This is pulled by Councilor Carlone. Transmitting communication from Louis A. D. Pasquale, City Manager, relative to the appropriation of $5,250,000 from free cash to the Public Investment Public Works Extraordinary Expenditures Account to facilitate the complete renovation of the building located at 859 Massachusetts Avenue. Councilor Carlone, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the manager and deputy city manager. Obviously, we're excited that this project's moving forward. I support it in every way. I, and others might not feel this way, I sure would love to see this project, even if it had been one of the sheets to show the rest. I assume this is a restoration. Is that correct on the outside? And that must add a good chunk of the cost.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely. It is available on the website. We have extensive design documents that are available on the website, and I apologize for not giving a link to the council or not doing that. You're absolutely right. It's a handsome design, and there is a website from the city manager's page for the 859 Mass Ave that has the floor plans and has the exterior. It is a historic renovation. It is being designed as a net zero building. There will be geothermal well drilled, 1 well, and we'll have PVs on the roof. So there'll be no fossil fuels that are going to the building. And it will be sort of super insulated walls, but certainly we're working closely with Charlie Sullivan and the Historical Commission.
Just because of my background, the square footage is approximately, I don't need it exactly. I take it there's an addition to the project while you're looking that up?
There isn't, in addition to the project. We're using basically the same footprint. It is 5,000 square foot land area. And we're doing the basically 10 SROs. So we're, in the back, we're putting a playground in there since it is for family units.
And the building square footage is? That's actually what I was asking.
Yes.
And then no more questions.
Yes, let me look for it. And
All right, I can get it later. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted additional information. Obviously, we all believe this is a major project, not only for affordable housing and relocating this use to even more modern facilities, but also for enhancing a building on Mass Avenue, a building that needed attention. So I think it's a win-win in many ways. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor McGovern.
Councilor Devereux.
Mayor, or did you?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Pardon me.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I guess I know that last December we were informed that you would be asking for about, or I think up to $5 million from free cash, and it's now prepped up to 5.25, and that does bring, with the, I think, 2.6 that we paid to acquire it, it is starting to look like it's going to cost us $750,000 for each. I mean, these aren't units, but if it's 10 single mothers and children, it's expensive. I'll say that, and I feel like when it's that expensive, a little more detail would be helpful, just because it's a lot of money, and I know it costs a lot to build affordable housing. I had been thinking that the cost was closer to $500,000, which is already breathtaking. So I just wanted a little more context.
It is $8.6 million total. 2.6 for the purchase of the building, and then $750 for design, and now there's $5,250,000, which is 8.6.
Councilor Mazza.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, obviously I'm in favor of this and have been following with great interest our work to acquire the building and then now to renovate it. I have two questions. The first one is along the line of Councilor Devereaux's inquiry. Just, of course, would love to see detail along with cost, but the second issue is I probably would have loved to have known about other options you were considering as well. Is there a reason, for example, that if we're gutting and restoring the whole thing, that we didn't add on extra volume at some point in the renovation? Is there some reason that we didn't maximize, across the whole? You may tell me that this is a building that is of the utmost historical character. But to me, I would just as soon demolish this building to make way for more families and more office space and more much overdue and long discussed city overflow space. So I guess I'm wondering how we came to this price and this plan.
We, through you, Madam Vice Mayor, we did do an assessment of the building. Again, that we had a meeting to talk about it in January. We went to the council. It was done prior to June of last year. It is available on the website as well. We did consider whether we should add additional bulk and additional affordable housing to the site in the back. And ultimately, it was just determined that it was a lot of bulk and a lot more expense to do that, and it would have to be managed separately, and you'd have to have a separate elevator, and it just got really complicated for perhaps 2 or 3 units that you would be adding and a lot more expensive. In terms of what the emergency shelter and the YW's needs are, it's the replacement of the 10 single-room occupancy units or the family units, and there's shared kitchens on each floor and obviously bathrooms in each unit, and so it is a more expensive design that way by having, 4 kitchens essentially. I'm really happy to get you more detail on the building. I would say that we had hoped that the price was going to come in lower. We just got the bids that were opened, and the bids were much higher than what we anticipated, at least about $500,000 higher than what our estimate was. But I'd say we had several more bids, and they were even much higher. So this is really the lowest one. But we feel like it's a really important project for the city, and so we really, although I think we recognize that it's an expensive project, we're, recommending that we move forward on it.
Of course, and I don't want you to think for a second that I'm saying we should supplant the intended project with some other project. I'm saying this would be additional and up to and including, if separate elevator banks and separate management are at question, including, whether the YW would be interested in doing more units and more value. And, of course, the need is infinite, right? So I'm just trying to maximize this, given that we're putting so much of the city's time, goodwill, and money on the line. And I guess I wish we had that every time that we come into some land as the city that we do even more every time. But if that's not possible on this site, I understand. I just appreciate you for making this possible. It seems like this project has moved relatively quickly so far in the planning. So I'm thankful for that, and thankful, obviously, for the YWCA's continued work on this, important transitional and emergency housing offering for the community. Thanks.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, the
Yes.
building area is 5,130 square feet.
Further discussion? Councilor Chung, and then we'll take a vote.
Thank you. Just wanted to, I think, express my gratitude and appreciation for this work. I think, we saw how many people that were here a second ago for the 20% inclusionary, which is really targeted at people who have some basic level of income. I think we really need to be focused. I wish there were that many people as excited about focusing on those who have, transitional housing, those who have less than the minimum amount of income. The people who are at the lower end of the scale and starting from homeless on up, I think is really where we need to spend a lot of our time and attention. And I think this is a project that is trying to do that, and that this is as important to me as the ordinance that we just passed in the council. So just wanted to say thank you for that work and make sure that you knew that your attention on this, even though we don't have the crowds cheering, I think to me at least is as important, and if not more so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chung. Further discussion? I wanted to say I'm very pleased to see this in front of us. This particular project and this housing is so important in terms of stabilizing some of our more frail communities. And as we continue to strengthen our housing program, not alone, but with the community-based organizations across the city, we can transition people from temporary housing to permanent affordable housing. I just think this is one of those steps. So I'm very pleased to see this. I want to thank the YWCA and our community-based organizations who continue to support us and push us to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to keep Cambridge affordable. So I think this is a very important vote. I'm glad it's in front of us. If there's no further discussion, I will call for the roll. So Councilor Ma calls for the roll. Madam Clerk.
On adoption of the order, Councilor Calhoun.
Yes.
Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Ma.
Yes.
Councilor Mazin. Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And agenda item number 1 is adoption on the affirmative vote with 9 in favor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to number 5, pulled by Councilor Devereaux at my urging. A communication transmitted from Louis A. D. Pasquale, City Manager, relative to awaiting report item number 1721 regarding a report on whether the stop sign can be reinstalled at the intersection of the Green Street and Hancock Street.
Would you like to? I mean, I understand the memo. It's one of those things where we responded to resident concerns about an unsafe intersection, and their professional opinion says this intersection doesn't have enough volume of traffic to warrant a stop sign. So if you would like to go further on that question, go ahead.
And I did read it, and I see the data that you've used to support it. I just don't agree with it. It was there. I don't know why we can't put it back. It's not like it was never there. Sometimes it's not about the data. It's about what makes people feel more comfortable, what makes people believe that they're going to be safer as they try to traverse our streets. And so sometimes we have to do something that doesn't make a lot of sense to us, but builds a lot of goodwill. And so for me, this is about building goodwill in our community by answering a concern that the neighborhoods have. And so I know you're saying no, and I'm saying rethink it. I don't want to get into the habit of sending things back, but I'm sending this back. I really want you to rethink it, but I will hear from you if you'd like to speak to it.
Obviously, we'll take another look at it at your request, but the two things I'd say, one is we actually have no evidence in any of our files, and also looking back at any maps or anything that there was a stop sign there, and it doesn't appear that there's a pole with a missing stop sign or anything like that. So I know that the original order asked for the reinstallation, but we can't determine that there was in fact a stop sign there prior. So if you or any of your constituents have any evidence, please let me know. And then,
very good.
We'll certainly look at it, like I said, but I think it is a situation where there is a lot of evidence that if we put up more signs and more stop signs than is justified, then you wind up with people just not paying attention to them, and then that spreads beyond. So again, we'll certainly look at it again, but it's more than just us being difficult. There is, sound technical reasons behind it.
And please understand, I don't see you as being difficult, but just have differences of opinion of this. But it's interesting you should say that, because there was a light at one time years ago at Brookline and Putnam Avenue, and they replaced it with a stop sign because they felt, and what we heard that time was that it would be more likely to stop at a stop sign. At a light, at a red light, people would tend to run through it. And so I'm thinking in that same light, well, stop sign makes people more compliant, then maybe stop signs are the way to go. But I respectfully ask you to take this back and rethink it. Is there any more, Councilor Carlo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Bart. Joe, which corner, I meant to stop by tonight and I didn't. Is it the downhill going down Hancock Street corner? Which corner is the corner where it's missing?
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, it's coming down.
Because I remember a stop sign there.
Okay.
And now granted, that could be a long time ago, but I do remember it. But I also wanted to add that I have been on Green Street, stopped, and proceeded, and almost got hit by somebody who came down the hill and just kept going. And I assumed there was a stop sign there, but just because of gravity alone. People tend to speed going down a hill. So I would say if you don't feel comfortable with having stop signs at all four corners, although I know one in my neighborhood, and thank God it's there, I would take it out on Green Street.
I believe, through you, Madam Mayor, I did not, again, look at the aerial again before I came, but I believe the stop sign is on Hancock, and Green Street proceeds through. So I think the request was for a stop sign on Green Street.
Madam Mayor, I drive down this street every day on my way home. It's literally around the corner from my house. The sign is on Hancock Street. So you come down the hill, you have to stop on Hancock. There is no stop sign on Green Street. And I can tell you, it is a free-for-all a lot of the time. It's a very confusing street. A lot of times people think that there should be a stop sign on the Green Street, so they stop, and then you're sitting there, and you're not, everyone's kind of who's supposed to go, and other times, it's just a hard corner to see. If there's any kind of construction vehicle or garbage truck or recycling, it's a really tough corner. I literally drive down there. It's literally right around the corner from my house. So it is a problem corner for sure.
So, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you for your edification. You did take the floor from your colleague. Councilor Carlo.
I was going to add a few comments, but my comments were wonderfully transmitted to the Vice Mayor, and he repeated them.
Very good.
I was completed. I was complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mazin and then Councilor Kelly.
I don't want to disagree too much with my colleagues, and I might be in the minority on this issue anyway, but I really feel for Joe in this situation where he's trying to implement a standard that only becomes evident when it becomes a pattern, and we can't let him get started on the pattern because every time you remove or don't place a stop sign, we are flying in the face of the best practices you're trying to teach us. So what I'm saying is that, for what it's worth, there's a generational divide in my family on this issue because when I talked about it with my parents, they couldn't believe for a second that by removing stop signs you're going to increase attentiveness. But if that's the data, then I think that's what we should follow. Moreover, I used to live right on Hancock or right off of Hancock. And had occasion to visit that intersection a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong, but because of the way that intersection is arranged, there's actually a lot less traffic there than a lot of other side streets coming off of Green Street. I see people taking their care there, and the few times I've had occasion to drive a zip car through it, I found people well, obviously concerned about the nature of the intersection, but navigating it properly. I don't know that this is too important a matter for me to be emphatic about, but I'm marginally interested in just not placing a stop sign there for the reasons I just stated. Thanks.
Thank you, Council Madsen. Council Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would echo, I think, Councilor Madsen's comments, and I think this goes just beyond just the stop sign. Is we've asked the city to do something for us. They came back with a professional response. We don't like it, and so we're saying go back and give us a different professional response. And I don't know where the council fits in that. I have my ideas about traffic. They're not everyone's ideas about traffic, because sometimes they're completely wrong. Sometimes they're right for me and wrong for other people. And I'm happy to spend however much time second-guessing city staff all the time, or I'm happy to say, Mr. Barr's looking at me saying that would be great. But I think I'm more happy to say if we have a difference of opinion with what they are doing, then we should have a different discussion about what it is that they are doing and how we ask them to do stuff. So we got a good response on this. It makes absolutely perfect sense to me. I have yet to understand why we would expect a different response coming back, except because of some sort of political pressure, which I don't think is the way we should do most traffic things. So I will not vote to support this going back unless I hear from city staff that they're likely to come back with a different discussion or a different decision. I would comment that if there's 200 cars on the one street and 300 cars on the other street every hour, as I read it at least, per an 8-hour period, that's one car every 7 seconds for 8 hours, which just seems like an absurdly high amount of cars for almost any street. Is my math right, and is there not a typo? Is that really what a stop sign requires, is that level of traffic?
Barr?
So now you're going to, through you, Madam Mayor, now you're going to make me do math on the fly. But I mean, this is the federal standard, to 300 vehicles per hour. Now I'm struggling with doing this in real time, but it's not a tremendous volume of traffic if you average it out over the course of an hour. So.
Council Kelly?
And I guess I'd say a car every 7 seconds, if that's in fact what it is not a huge volume of traffic.
Okay, it sounds like a lot to me, but so the second question then is, how much flexibility is there realistically in these standards, and how much, not pushback, but how much guidance? Because I think counselors understand this particular intersection better than someone going out and counting cars and applying the federal standard. I get that part, but how much flexibility is there really in a standard like this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say that, it's not like we would be punished for putting in the stop sign at this location. It's not that kind of a standard. It's more, as Councilor Mazin referred to, engineering guidance that allows us to try to make the right decisions in different situations and prevent every corner from being an all-way stop, which I think would be detrimental to safety in the end, and allowing us to deploy the right tool at the right location. So, I mean, are there no stop signs in Cambridge, or for that matter, traffic signals in Cambridge that aren't fully justified according to the federal standards? Of course there are, but I think we try to stick to this as much as we can. But if there's a strong desire for something different, then we certainly, like I said, have done that in the past. I think the only question, I think, in terms of going back and looking at this again, would be just to reevaluate the sight lines at the intersection and just determine if we see something that we didn't we took a quick look at it, but we didn't sort of go out and measure everything. And so there are some additional analysis we might do. I can't say what the answer would be, but it's not like we're just sort of saying, ask us again and maybe we'll give you a different answer. There is some more analysis that we can do if it's of as much concern as I'm hearing this evening. So.
Council Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not so concerned about this, but if this takes this much effort, I wish us all well on these separated bike lanes that I imagine we'll be talking about at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Council Kelly. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'm referring back to the city manager. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the matter is referred back to the city manager. We now move to number 6. This is pulled by Councilor Devereux. A communication transmitted by Louis A. D. Pasquale, city manager, relative to the appointment of the following persons as members of the Vision Zero Advisory Committee effective April 3rd, 2017, for the term of 2 years. Nicholas Dard, Ann Kreider, Jennifer Quick, Paul Coleman, Stephen Varicchio, Becca Wolfson, Nathaniel Phillimore, Stacey Thompson, Richard Fries, Wendy Landman, Amy Flax, Sean Pierce, Jim Gascioni, Michael Mewey, Diane Gray, Todd Robinson, Michelle Torfero, and Steve Crossley. Councilor Devereux, pull this item. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to the staff. So I applaud the creation of this group. I think it brings together a really all-star team, and I'm really pleased to see so many representatives from the various advocacy groups, because I think you'll have some really robust discussion. So who is the sort of staff member who is going to be leading this group?
Sure, through Madam Mayor. So, I mean, it's really a joint effort between several departments. We've been coordinating it with community development. It's sort of been the key in terms of creating this committee, and Brooke McKenna from my staff has really been the key staff member. But it's really, like I said, it's been a joint effort of several departments to get us to this stage.
No, I realize that, but in terms of sort of the day-to-day or the month-to-month, I'm assuming this group will meet maybe monthly, or maybe that hasn't been worked out yet.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the intention initially at least was to meet quarterly, partly because we didn't want to, given the number of people we have on this and wanting not to, we wanted to use their time wisely, so we felt like quarterly would be good. If that turns out not to be frequently enough, we're certainly open to more frequent meetings. In terms of staff, or in terms of the day-to-day, I think my department will be taking the lead on organizing the meetings and, the logistics, all that. And I would hope, we haven't set a first meeting date, but I would hope that we would have them meet within the next month or so.
Great, and I'm assuming they'll be involved in, for instance, the Inman Square redesign when you have a meeting for that in May. I know that. And maybe you could take them over to Hancock Street and Green and see if they have any recommendations. I guess one of the things in that conversation that we had, and not to reopen it.
You can't, Councilor Devereux.
It's in the context of Vision Zero, because we're supposed to be looking at all traffic decisions from a safety standpoint, and often when we talk about traffic, we're talking about cars and cars stopping and getting confused about when other cars are stopping or not stopping. But I would argue that one should look at what the pedestrian movement is on those streets. I don't know if more people are walking on one street or another. So that's, I think, the reason to have a group like Vision Zero that also contributes to the sort of, wait a minute, we're supposed to be thinking of safety of all users, not just movement of cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Devereux. Further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to city staff. I'm looking forward to how this safety discussion unfolds. Where do the Cambridge Youth Services fit into this discussion in terms of having some sort of permanent voice on it, whether it's through the schools or through the Youth Services Department?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So what we haven't listed on here, other than I guess Michael Mewey from the Disabilities Commission, is that there will also be representatives of several city departments providing input to this group, and so we expect to have representatives from both the school department and, if we need to, on a sort of at sometimes from the Department of Human Service Programs to represent those voices. But certainly the school department is a critical piece of this, and so we intend to have them involved in this committee, in all of the meetings going forward.
Councilor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would encourage I know some high school students, for example, that are active in bike safety issues. I think we want to hear directly from people who are bicycling, rather than hearing that voice somehow interpreted by people who may or may not be bicyclists themselves. So to the extent that you can bring actual young cyclists into the discussion and understand, for example, the challenges of keeping a light on your bicycle at the high school, or carrying your lacrosse stick when you go to practice on the other side of town, or whatever it is these young people face as bike safety challenges that most of us don't, I think that would be useful.
And through Madam Mayor, I'll just say the city manager and I met with the bicycle safety group at the high school a few months ago, and I think we can reach back out to them and see if there's a member of that group that would like to serve on this committee. And I don't think we're necessarily viewing the membership as 100% complete, because there are a few additional groups that we've been talking to. We just don't have, we didn't want to hold getting the committee started because it has been a little while since we advertised it, so we wanted to get this moving. But if there is an opportunity, I think, to add, a few more members to it if it makes sense. So we'll certainly look into that.
Thank you. Councilor Kelly, any further questions? Further discussion? Hearing none, I'm placing on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the matter is placed on file. We will move now to number 7. This is pulled by Councilor Chung. A communication transmitted from Louis A. D. Pasquale, City Manager, relative to a planning board recommendation to adopt, with suggestion modifications, the zoning petition to amend section 8.23, reconstruction of non-conforming structure or use following fire, explosion, or other catastrophe. Councilor Chung, you pulled this. You have the floor.
So I believe I need to pull move suspension of the rules to pull committee report number 3.
On suspension. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I'm bringing committee report number 3 forward. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and number 3 is before us. Councilor Chung, you have the floor.
So I'm looking for the clerk. So next we need to refer this to the petition. And did you want to read out the changes we're making, or do you want to do the referral first?
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Chung, I do believe that you have an amended text that you want to submit.
Yes.
So.
It's a red line version, and I'm colorblind, so. I guess first thing to do is to refer to petition.
Madam Clerk, what would you advise? Refer to the petition and then discuss? Or accept the report? What would be the appropriate way?
Okay. We need to refer agenda item number 7 to committee report number 3, and accept committee report number 3 and place it on file. And we have a text, an amended text. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the amended text, we provided the red line version for your information, but there's a clean version that is the textual changes that were discussed at the committee based upon the recommendations of the planning board and the discussion at the committee. And we recommend that through Councilor Chung that the amendment language that I believe has been provided to the rest of the council be substituted for the language in the petition.
Substituted as amended.
And would the council like us to read, or do you have a
Madam
copy?
Mayor?
Councilor Kelly?
As I look at it, the thing that came in front of us has an 8 on it, indicating that it would be agenda item number 8, which is the pet shop ordinance. But I think we're talking about agenda item number 7.
Yeah, we're talking.
We're talking
Right,
about
so
number
what
7.
people might be looking at that says 8 on it is what we want to be
I don't
looking at.
have that. So let's pause for a moment. I believe it should start, if a non-conforming structure or use shall have been destroyed or damaged by fire. That's what you should be reading. Does everyone have that? Councilor Devereux.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. What is labeled 8 is also dated February 13th, 2017, which is not.
You shouldn't do number 8 at all. You should have this right here. We're talking
I don't
about.
have that.
I think it's coming your way. And it should read, first line, if a non-conforming structure or use shall have been destroyed or damaged by fire. Does everyone have that? Okay. So this is the amendment, I believe. If a non-conforming structure or use shall have been destroyed or damaged by fire, explosion, or other catastrophe, and then you have in parentheses, except one that has been determined by the city to have been caused intentionally by or on behalf of the owner, whatever these things are. Such structure or use may be rebuilt or restored and used again as previously. If a non-conforming structure or use shall have been destroyed, damaged, or caused to be moved as a result of a public taking, said structure or use may be relocated or reconstructed on a lot or on an abutting lot in the same ownership, provided that said location or reconstruction does not result in the enlargement of the non-conforming use or structure. In either case, in either such case, the rebuilding, restoring, relocation, or reconstruction shall not require a special permit, provided that it commences within 24 months after such fire, explosion, catastrophe, public taking, or its blank 2017, the date of enactment of this amendment, whichever is later and is completed within 36 months after such fire, explosion, catastrophe, public taking, or blank 2017, the date of the enactment of the amendment, whichever is later, and provided that the structure as rebuilt, restored, relocated, or reconstructed shall not be greater in volume, footprint, or gross floor area, shall not further increase any nonconformities than those of the original nonconforming structure, and shall not further violate any dimensional requirements of the ordinance. Councilor Chung.
So just to give some context to my colleagues, so this was in response to the council requesting, after the fire in East Cambridge, looking at the difficulties that some of the residents were and landowners were having in terms of rebuilding a non-conforming structure that was destroyed with a fire, trying to make it easier for them to do that quickly and expeditiously without, I think, an overburdensome hassle trying to get variances and special permits. So, this was, I think we had a good debate in the ordinance committee, asked for a number of changes just to clarify the language, make it respond to some feedback that we got from the public. All these changes, I think, reflect what the council had discussed during the ordinance committee. We wanted to try and get this done as quickly as possible to try and give some relief to the people who are affected by the fire in East Cambridge a few months ago. The changes look to be exactly what we'd asked for. I think if it's easier, we can amend the petition. Probably we have to lay this on the table for 2 weeks anyways. And I think we can amend it next time if people are uncomfortable doing that tonight. If people want to do it tonight, I'm looking to the room to see what people would prefer to do. But either way, I think we want to accept the report, lay this on the table for the 2 weeks so we can try and ordain it. No, is that right? No? Where did I mess up?
We're going to accept the report, place it on file. We are going to amend by substitution. If that amendment by substitution prevails, we are going to pass it to a second reading as amended.
Do we have to?
And that will go on the unfinished business.
Do we have to amend that tonight, or can we amend it next week or the week after if we pass it to a second reading?
Well, I think that might be a question that the city solicitor might answer better.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, you can certainly pass it to a second reading tonight as the petition is presently before the council, and then move to substitute with the amended language later.
So, Councilor Chung, do you want to, I don't know if we've done this, refer the agenda item number 7 to committee report number 3, and then on report number 3, accept and place on file, and then you want to amend by substitution, which we just read, and then pass to a second reading.
Yeah, so I think that's the chain of events we want to do.
As amended.
We can amend it tonight, or we can either amend it tonight or not tonight. For those who weren't in the meeting, if they want to have more time to look at it, we can certainly amend it at the next meeting.
Pleasure of the City Council. Councilor Carlone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple quick questions. I was not at this ordinance meeting. I think that's the only one I missed this year. I was sick, and I just have a question. This doesn't mean literally rebuild the building that was there, because it was a historic church. So this is rebuild the square footage that was there.
Ms. Glower or Ms. Avram or Mr. DePasquale?
Because when I read this, it seems to be literally rebuilt, and that's not going to happen.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The church got a comprehensive permit already approved, so that is not part of this really. The rest of the buildings, they have to build as the same volume and footprint and area.
In area.
Yes.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to be clear. Great. And I take it that there's no coordination that would be expected on other projects. There's no special permit, there's no design review. You can theoretically build the square footage, but it could have different exterior siding, it could be painted red, white, and blue. It could be anything. Is that right?
Oui, Madam. Yes, design has no effect on zoning. So
I'm sorry?
Design on the color doesn't matter with zoning. So it's only the square footage and the setbacks and the volume.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Carlin. Councilor Devereaux.
Just to throw you a quick clarifying question on behalf of the gentleman who's come to all these hearings. So it's good that we've extended the time to complete to 36 months, and I think it no longer says work continuously too. So we've taken that out of it. But what happens if, despite the property owner's best efforts, the 36 months can't be met for, an insurance problem or something that's beyond their control? Would it go to the BZA or the planning board to say we grant you an extension of 6 months, or to Ranjit? How would that work? Or is that?
Ms. Loa.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think that, this is one of the difficult things about a provision like this. It is a fairly long period of time. So I think that at that point it would be out of compliance and the owner would have to apply for a variance, because that's the language that's here now. If you leave it completely open, then you do run the risk of people having projects that could go on for who knows how long. So that's really a policy decision for the council.
I see. And what if someone started? Would there ever be a situation where someone started to rebuild this non-conforming structure and for some reason beyond their control couldn't finish it in that time, and then you would say, well, you can no longer build what you started building? Or once they have the building permit? I'm a little confused about. I understand that we want to sort of suggest that from a policy standpoint that you need to get going and you need to do this, because 3 years is a very long time for any construction project, except for a certain person's house on Brattle Street that seems to have taken forever and a day. But hopefully they can do it quicker. Would there ever be a situation where somebody would be in the midst of construction and then would be told they couldn't do what they had started to do? Or is that completely not a probability?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's difficult to answer questions like this hypothetically. There are some thorny enforcement issues that occur, and I think those are things that the Commissioner of Inspectional Services struggles with, and we all, various city staff members, work to address situations like that when they arise. But it would be difficult to provide one simple answer. It could at that point be considered a zoning violation. Certainly the commissioner works with people when zoning violations are identified. But again, it's one of those things where, as a matter of policy, generally our recommendation will be to give that cutoff. It's a much longer cutoff period, and so that would be the staff recommendation.
Okay,
thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Chung, are you prepared to?
So unless any of my colleagues wanted to wait until next week to amend the petition, I'm going to move that we do the substitution tonight.
On the substitute offered by Councilor Chung, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, and substitution. So I'm passing on to a second reading as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the matter is passed to a second reading as amended. We now move to number 8. This was pulled by Councilor Chung. A communication transmitted from Louis A. DePasquale, City Manager, relative to amendments to Title VI of the Municipal Code entitled Animals to include a new Chapter 6.20 entitled Restrictions on the Sale of Animals and Pet Shops. Councilor Chung.
I pulled this just to refer this to the petition.
Vice Mayor?
Just a quick
discussion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick I don't think we have to do this now. We can do this with the ordinance committee, but just so my colleagues know. I am going to suggest a couple of amendments. It's really just one word that has to, we're going to add, because we left this out, arachnids, which are spiders, because the sale of tarantulas and whatnot. So I just have to go through and add that into the various places where it lists the animals. So it's not going to be a major amendment, but it might be tedious because it appears in a whole number of places.
But for now, we're just referring to the,
Madam Mayor?
excuse me. Madam Clerk is saying something. Madam Clerk? Councilor Chung, our clerk is suggesting that you refer this to ordinance and to, refer to the ordinance committee. Any
Madam
further
Mayor?
Councilor?
When a guest comes to the ordinance committee meeting, I would suggest that we change the title from restrictions on the sale of animals in pet shops to prohibitions, which seems more accurate and something I essentially support.
Very good. Further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, I'm referring to the ordinance committee. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the matter is so referred. We move now to number 9. This is pulled by Councilor Chung. A communication transmit from Louis A. DePasquale, City Manager, relative to awaiting report item number 1710 regarding allowing Cambridge residents to round up their water sewer bills to assist in funding specific community relief projects. Councilor Chung.
I just wanted to thank the city manager for the response on this. I know this is kind of a crazy idea and seems like it's going to be a little bit of work to try and pull off. Just for my colleagues, just for some background, I've been talking with the city manager about this idea for a while. I stole this from some other cities that have been doing something similar. And my concern here is, it's great that we have, a community benefits pool of money that we can gear towards helping some of the nonprofits in our city, which do a lot of times a lot of the work that the city would be doing if that nonprofit didn't exist. I'm really concerned about the cuts that are going to come down from the federal government looking forward. And the city is talking about how we're going to close the gap and meet some of the deficits that we're anticipating. I think that our nonprofit partners in the community are going to be facing similar challenges going forward in terms of continuing to meet the demand of our residents while facing shortcuts or cuts in funding from the federal government. It'd be great to have, in addition to those one-time big injections of funding from, when we do big zonings and big PUDs, to have some kind of ongoing funding mechanism to pour money into the community benefits fund, which took a lot of time and thought, and I think it was really well constructed. So, one idea that I had looking at other communities was, they round up the bill, for them, it's a different bill given, different states, but, rounding up the bill and then putting that money towards helping our nonprofits seemed like a good idea. If there are other ideas to try and create some kind of revenue source for the nonprofits that, doesn't just come out of the general fund, which is, I think the same reasons we don't want to raise taxes. We want to have something that's a bit optional for those residents who have the ability to pay more and want to pay more for our nonprofits to let them do that. I'm not married to this idea, but I am, married to the idea that we need to try and put in place some kind of funding mechanism for those community benefits to help our nonprofit partners. So, I'm not sure if you had any other ideas came up or what, but I, look forward to trying to figure out something to try and achieve that. And, if we can move this forward, working with our billing vendor, thinking about how we would draft a home rule petition, that would be great. If there's a way we can do it internally without going to the state, even better. But, want to try and push something forward. So. Not sure if you had any.
Mr. DePasquale.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think, obviously, the idea works. One of the major concerns, to be very honest, is the opt-in option. If there was an opt-out, based on the fact we send out about 15,000 water bills 4 times annually, it would certainly be some volume, even if you round it to the nearest dollar. I think with the opt-in, we are concerned that it'll be a minimal amount of a contribution that we end up getting, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So I think we're going to move forward in terms of doing everything we can do to evaluate, get ready to implement, and then, again, take a look at the fact if there's any way we could make this an opt-out. Right now, we don't think that's the case, but I think we need to do some more work on this. But I want to thank Michelle and David for the work they've already done to try to get us to this place.
Councilor Chung. Further discussion? Councilor Devereaux?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I think it's overall a good idea. I am concerned that it is a fair amount of work, and there's no estimate of what we think we might be able to yield from either an opt-in or an opt-out. I mean, opting in obviously is an estimate on how generous people would feel or how well we can communicate that this even is an option. And then I guess my second question was, are we allowed to do, Councillor Chung was talking about nonprofit partners. I read community relief projects as being, it could go to a future fire fund, or it could go to a tree planting campaign, or it could go to community projects. Are we allowed to actually direct it to nonprofits, or would it have to go to a general fund that is dedicated to the welfare of, I don't know?
I mean, we could, when we set it up with the legislature, it would be worded in a way that obviously we would be getting a service from the nonprofits as well, but we would have to work. It couldn't be a general statement, but we could make it for nonprofits pending, what they were doing. But again, that's why you'd need the home rule petition, and, we'd have to work it out that way. But, we will continue to do some work on this, but I think if it's round to the nearest dollar and it's an opt-in, even with a lot of publicity, at 14,000 bills, you're looking at a pretty small return. Now, if we came up with something that asked for an opt-in, but you were rounding to a much higher number, that could bring some income, but I'm not sure how that would go as well. So we got some work to do. But, we'll move forward and come back with something that shows if we do this, this is what we think the revenue will be. But we just wanted to get this up here to say that we'll continue to look at it and hopefully have a recommendation shortly.
Councilor Devereaux? Councilor Mazin?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. If it were legal to do an opt-out, which I'm not sure if it is, and if you wanted to maybe even do I think we're allowed to put things on the ballot, right? We can agree to a ballot question. It's a perfect opportunity to ask people by referendum if they want to round up to the nearest $10 as an opt-out, and then you're making, a fraction of $1 million a year. Great. You say it's for a good cause, and maybe fewer people opt out, and maybe it's not such a bad thing to vote on either. Or maybe people don't want this at all, but it's good to know what people want, and if a ballot question helps with that, then great. When I've heard something like this aired before, I was concerned that you would be doing all this work and bringing in under $5,000, maybe much under $5,000, depending on how things went. And that's not what I'm hoping for. What I am hoping for, though, is we continue to think about how to leverage people's goodwill and how to leverage their extra wealth to support a city that needs it. It is this return over and over again to the difficulty of a progressive real estate tax in Cambridge, and the fact that would rely on serious collaboration with the state and serious research. That I do think is worth it. And I think will change the way that Cambridge funds and talks about funding its housing crisis. So I'll put in yet another plug for that, which sounds similar to this, but could have a far different impact.
Further discussion? Hearing none, I'm placing on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, the matter is placed on file. We now move to the calendar. Pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Chung.
I'd like to pull number 6.
Number 6. I need a page. I ripped it out my book. Further, anything else on the unfinished or calendar?
See you doing something.
Hearing none, Councilor Chung pulled number 6, which reads as follows. An amendment of the municipal code ordinance entitled Title 8, entitled Health and Safety be amended in Chapter 8.12.010 entitled Self-Service Station Regulations. Councilor Chung.
So I think we had a...
Question comes on passing to be ordained on or after April 3rd.
I would move to ordain unless people wanted me to reiterate what I said a couple weeks ago.
On ordination. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Calhoun. Counselor Chung?
Yes.
Counselor Devereaux?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly? Counselor Lamar?
Yes.
Counselor Mazin? Vice Mayor McGovern? Counselor Toomey? Mayor Simmons?
Yes.
Counselor Calhoun? Counselor Mazin?
Yes.
And the ordinance is passed to be ordained on an affirmative vote with 9 in favor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We now move to applications and petitions. Pleasure of the City Council.
Move the adoption.
Councilman moves the adoption of application number 1. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the odd order is adopted. Communication. Pleasure of the City Council. On the motion by Council Lamar to place items 1 through 13 on file, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the communications are placed on file. We move now to resolutions. Pleasure of the City Council.
Move the adoption.
On a motion by Council Lamar on the resolution list, making them unanimous on adoption, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the matters are adopted and made unanimous on adoption. We move now to policy orders. Pleasure of the City Council. Number 2 being disposed of. On a motion by Council Lamar to adopt policy order number 1, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the policy order is adopted. Number 2 having been disposed of. We move now to committee reports. And they are as follows. Committee report number 1. A communication was received from Paula Crane, Deputy Clerk, transmitting report from Councilor Nadine Mazin, Chair of the Neighborhood and Long-Term Planning, Public Facilities, Arts and Celebrations Committee, for a public hearing held on February 15, 2017, to discuss next steps on bike and transit safety in Cambridge. Question comes on accepting the report and placing on file. Pleasure of the committee. You want to speak on this? Yep, it is. Council Mazin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your patience. I was just wrapping up with the city manager. This committee report was excellent, or this committee, rather, was an excellent meeting for a number of reasons, and I thank everyone for coming. It was a great meeting of minds. Obviously, stakeholders in the bike safety and transit safety community are beginning to come together and do much broader and deeper work, and I think there's a broad set of constituents coming forward from the community of people who bike, people who walk, people who drive, in order to understand one another better and not to talk past one another. In that spirit, I think also counselors who have had differing opinions are beginning also to find ways that these opinions can overlap. So in particular, I think Councilor Kelly in this meeting and I talked about a way of separated bike lanes and a way of pop-up infrastructure that aren't so objectionable and something that we can all agree on, or at least both agree on, and I was very happy for that as well. So with that brief summary, I hope people will read back into the full minutes and will participate in future iterations of that conversation.
Discussion? Hearing none. Question comes on accepting report and placing on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the report is accepted and placed on file. We move to committee report number 2. Communication was received from Donna P. Lopez, City Clerk, transmitting a report from Councilor Jan Devereaux, Chair of the Health and Environment Committee, for a public hearing held on March 22, 2017, to receive an update from city staff on recent changes regarding leaf blowers made since a hearing held in June 2016, including enforcement, the purchase and pilot of green landscaping equipment, plans for a pilot program in spring 2017 to use green equipment in 2 parks, and any other updates on efforts the city is taking in regards to leaf blowers and any other changes to the existing leaf blower ordinance that the council may wish to consider. Question comes on accepting report and placing on file. Councilor Devereaux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we discussed all the things that you just read, so I won't repeat them all. It was actually a really productive committee hearing. We had, I think, 5 counselors present and a lot of members of the public. I commend our staff at DPW and at the License Commission for really taking to heart the direction that we gave them last summer. They have been piloting electric equipment, and they will be doing these new 2 parks in the spring that they're going to be all electric equipment, so mowers, blowers, everything will be electric. I think that's great. I think that will help raise awareness. At the same time, the License Commission has really cracked down on violations from private landscaping contractors. They have beefed up the training that they do for both city employees and for municipal contractors. So that's all good. Yet we're left with the reality that leaf blowers, whether electric or used according to best practices, are still a real nuisance, and they are a public health hazard. Increasingly, there is research to support that, and so as much as we can try to mitigate their effects, the only real way to get rid of their effects is to consider banning them. And I know that's probably not what some people would like to hear, but we did have consensus among the counselors who were present at the meeting that that really was the logical next step, and we started to talk about that. So I think that is the logical next step for this committee to process how we would do that, whether there would be certain exemptions for municipal workers who, we do recognize have much bigger responsibilities to maintain the public safety and to maintain a large number of fields and parks. So we will be talking about that, and we're excited about the effort that DPW and the License Commission are making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Devereaux. Discussion? Hearing none on accepting the report and placing on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the report is accepted and placed on file. We now move to roundtable minutes. Pass over. Communication. We have one communication and one late communication. On the communication that is before us, pleasure of the City Council.
Madam Mayor,
Councilor Kelly.
I would like to continuously talk about this, whether it's through communications to council officers or just in general. Mm-hmm. But I am constantly thinking that we over-police where police are not the best thing. And they may or may not be the best thing in City Hall. I understand there are a number of people that feel genuinely physically threatened working in City Hall and derive great comfort from seeing a uniformed officer here. On the other hand, I'm certain there are people who, for whatever reason, do not feel comfortable coming into a civic building with a uniformed officer present, and I think at some point we need to revisit how to provide appropriate safety and a feeling of security for staff, while at the same time making sure that people who want to do their business here, which is the only place you can do much city business, don't feel unnecessarily chilled. Similarly, I think that a police substation in Central Square, which I did vote for and changed my mind, and rather than doing the whole very confusing, whatever that thing is that we sometimes get confused about, rather than doing that, I just figured I'd share my thoughts that were we to do it again, I would vote no. I think we need a much deeper discussion about why we want police there, what we want them to do, and the police need to be part of that discussion, or I suspect we will have them doing things that seem reasonable in the moment, but do not look good, for example, on TV or YouTube or wherever it might be. And I don't think I've scheduled a meeting yet, but that's somewhere in the works in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. Discussion? Councilor Mazin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councilor Kelly, I agree wholeheartedly with the content and the spirit of this letter. I think I ended up voting no on this above my own trepidations. I didn't want to disagree with the good intentions of the original order, but in thinking about it, I have to agree there's just a much deeper conversation needed on the patchwork and the depth of services needed in order to provide a comprehensive and humane solution. I think, with great respect and great appreciation for our police, that would only be one factor in achieving the ends we wish to in the square and across the city. So I'll echo what Councilor Kelly's saying. I hope then that means that Councilor Kelly and I will both, and potentially with the support of many allies here on council, will both be able to lead a systematic approach to that type of discussion in any of the committees that we have overseeing these issues. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Madison. Councilor Carlone, then Councilor Chung. Councilor Carlone.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The specific site that was mentioned, Barron Plaza, has problems, but the major problem is the lack of active use on the ground floor. Typically, public spaces that are successful have uses at the ground floor that oversee the public space, animate the public space. And when you have a good bank, that certainly doesn't work, and I'm not even sure what's on the other side. I think it's completely dead. So I'm not saying the answer is only in urban design and requirements, but that is part of the problem at this location, is that no one is in charge. A police station is probably the last, substation is probably the last thing you try to do, but there is some sense to it of having a small storefront. Now the question is, will anybody be inside during the day, or will they be out walking around? But this really gets to how we program public spaces or just let them be. And in this case, you can't let it just be. So it's a complicated issue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Carlone. Councilor Chung.
Thanks. So just to chime in, I continue my support in voting for this last week. If it had come back up, I would have voted for it again. I think we have to recognize we have a responsibility to residents as the policymaking body for the city, but we also have a responsibility to our employees that work here in the city. And our responsibility to our employees means having a police officer helps them feel safe and confident and able to focus on their job and doing the work of serving our residents. I think that we need to listen to what our employees have asked for and respond to it and provide for them the environment that they need to do their job. I think secondly, just Councilor Kelly, with the discussion about whether or not the presence of a police officer is found troubling to some. We had a discussion earlier tonight about the leadership that Cambridge is showing to the rest of the country in setting an example and a role model. While the Cambridge Police Department has not been spared its fair share of learning opportunities, the way that we do policing in Cambridge is very, very different from everywhere else across the country. The focus on community policing, the reason why, frankly, we have so many homeless in Cambridge is because we have officers dedicated to serving that homeless population, putting them in connection with services. We don't just round them up, put them in jail, and try to force them out of the city. We treat them as human beings with dignity and respect, and we try to do our best to help them. The police officers know their names. We have police officers who will go above and beyond in terms of training to not just exert authority at the end of a badge and a gun, but to work with the community proactively. I think it's not that we need to prevent people from feeling troubled by seeing a police officer. We need to give them more opportunities to interact with our police and recognize what policing in America could be if policing is based on the community, is based in the values I think that Cambridge has. I think that having police presence, the more opportunity that the public has to interact with the police, the better. It gives our police an opportunity to know the community and also offers the community an opportunity to recognize that policing, we do need a shift in policing across the country, but here in Cambridge, we're at the vanguard, we're leading that change, and we're trying to build what a police force should look like, and I think we've taken great strides in that direction. So, all due respect to the people who feel trouble, I think that they should go and talk to our police officers, get to recognize that they are human beings as well, that they are dedicated to their job and they're dedicated to serving this community. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereux.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree that our police are different, and that may not always be apparent to people who just see them as a uniform. the police, the relatively new regular police presence within City Hall, to me seems about as unobtrusive a police presence as you can get. The officer is never at either of the doors, so far as I can tell. Today, I actually came in, and because of Councilor Kelly's memo, made sort of a conscious effort to find this person, you know, as though I was just a casual visitor and didn't see him. So it seems like he's often, and this is not a criticism, but, you know, he looks like he's sort of conducting business himself. He's not guarding. He's not somebody who is, you know, looking at visitors up and down and seeing where they're going. He's often standing in the hall chatting with somebody. And we've made a big effort to tell people, you know, for instance, immigrants, that we're a sanctuary city and that the police are not going to ask them for papers. And I don't think anyone would assume that a police officer in City Hall would stop somebody and ask them why they were here or, you know, any of that. So that, to me, is a perfectly appropriate thing. Heather Hoffman, in public comment, said that there were an awful lot of police officers here tonight, and there were, and that was unusual, and it was because we, you know, prodded the troll in Washington and got some angry phone calls and some nasty emails, and so that was exceptional, but I wouldn't expect to see that. And finally, we all got an email today from someone who was saying that there was a mentally ill individual who was around a church outside Central Square, and that her friend was now becoming afraid to go to church because this mentally ill individual was there, and she wanted the police to do something about it. And, you know, again, it's this line between, well, it's the police are what people want. That's what they see the police as someone who can solve this problem with a mentally ill individual. It's actually a mental health issue, which isn't really a law enforcement issue, but that is who our society sees as having some authority over how do we get a resource to somebody who, you know, could be potentially dangerous. So, I stand by what we voted before. Obviously, it will take some discussion. We'll have a new police commissioner probably, hopefully, by the time that we get around to getting some sort of substation up and running this summer. So hopefully he or she can have input into what policies the officers who are assigned to that beat will have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Devereaux. Further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, on placing on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, the matter is placed on file. This takes care of the ordinary agenda of the City Council. We're going to now go to late resolutions. Then we will have to suspend the rules because there is one late communication. I do not believe there's any late policy orders. So on late resolutions, Madam Clerk.
We have a resolution on the death of Mary Lou Toomey submitted by Councilor Marr and Mayor Simmons. A resolution on the death of Senator Kenneth Donnelly submitted by Councilor Toomey. And a resolution on the death of Lorraine M. Souza submitted by Councilor Toomey.
On the late resolutions, making them unanimous on adoption. Well, let me just pause and just say to our colleague, Councilor Toomey, on behalf of the entire City Council, I want to extend our sincerest condolences to you on the loss of Miss Mary Lou Toomey. We do wish you and your family all the best. On the late resolutions, making them unanimous on adoption, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the resolutions are adopted.
Madam Chair, I have a late communication that I wanted to move suspension to add just
Yes.
to the record.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have taken care of the late resolution. So Councilor Mazza moves suspension of the rules. On suspension, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay. The aye. Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
On
Just a communication
suspension,
this time.
Councilor Calhoun.
Yes.
Councilor Chung. Councilor Devereaux.
Yes.
Councilor Kelly. Councilor Marr. Councilor Mazin.
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGovern. Councilor Toomey. Mayor Simmons.
Yes.
And the rules are suspended on affirmative vote with 6 in favor, 1 recorded in the negative, and 2 recorded as absent.
I'm bringing before a late communication offered by Council Mazin. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the late communication is before us. Council Mazin.
Thanks. I won't go on at length given the hour and the brevity of the letter. It basically says, we tried our best to get the city council goal setting by technical oversight somewhat out of our control. I'm sure we could have all been chasing the postings or whatever to make sure it happened, but it couldn't happen, and that's fine. But the letter says maybe in the future when things are of this weight and of this importance, we can book backup plans, we can book follow-up dates, and that's kind of what I was saying 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was saying if we could just have another meeting on the agenda, if something happens in the first meeting, if it's not enough time, or if we need a second meeting for any reason, we'll have that scheduled. And I'm just saying that while we're in the same room together, it might be a good opportunity for us to do that now with Sandra, or if we can't, I'm just urging the Sandra or the mayor's office to help us schedule not 1 but 3 of these, a meeting, a backup, but rain date, and a follow-up, because I think we'll need 2 and not 1. And I think now the case is stronger than maybe when I made it last time.
Thank you, Council Mazin. I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't know if you're asking for backup meetings for the goal setting, or are you asking for backup meetings to have just so that we can get together and.
Sorry, for the goal setting. Just
For the
to
goal
have
setting.
a goal setting, a rain date, and a second goal setting, because I assume we'll need 2 meetings, not 1. Thank you.
So pleasure of the council. I'm placing the letter on file. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the letter is placed on file. Pleasure of the council. On a motion by Council Ma to adjourn, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the meeting is adjourned.